It's 2021. All the more power to Carl. It doesn't change my opinion of him as a person or as a Raider. Nassib becomes the first active player to come out as gay. 76ers bounce from the Eastern Conference playoffs with a home loss against the Atlanta Hawks on Sunday. Today, head coach Doc Rivers said the Sixers have a plan to address Ben Simmons' shooting woes going forward. ESPN's Zach Lowe touching on the Sixers situation today on Get Up.
And I got bad news for the Sixers. The other 29 general managers, they all watched the playoffs really, really closely. They all saw all of this too. So this is going to be a really tough spot for them.
Clippers and Suns, Game 2, Western Conference Finals, Tuesday night on ESPN TV, ESPN Radio, and the ESPN app. Suns, over the weekend, taking Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals. Clippers head coach Ty Lue announcing today Kawhi Leonard has been ruled out for Game 2. Marcus Morris' status is uncertain as well. Morris experiencing soreness after he injured his right knee in the Clippers' Game 1 loss. ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski reporting Chauncey Billups and Becky Hammon will have second interviews with the Portland Trailblazers. Both are set for additional meetings with the organization for the open head coach position. Mike D'Antoni, according to a source, also considered to be another candidate for the Blazers' job. Stanley Cup playoffs tonight. Islanders and Lightning about to drop the puck for Game 5. That series tied at 2-2.
Coming up Tuesday, the Clippers got clipped by Devin Booker and the Suns in Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals. I'll tell you whether or not they have enough firepower left in the tank to win the series. Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin on ESPN Radio.
Isn't this a sports show?
We're here for a one-on-one interview with our friend Travis Kelce. Travis, I know you listen to a lot of Almost Entirely Sports. What do you think about Joshua Brisco and Beards McFly?
I mean, I don't think they suck. I can tell you that.
Thank you, Travis.
Almost Entirely.
I did the best I could. That's our new tagline. It's Almost Entirely Sports on Sports Radio 810. I did the best I could.
This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
Hey, Beards, where's your Pokeball?
So Rudy and I have our Pokeballs out.
Yeah.
What?
Beards, where's yours?
Beards, take your Pokeball out. Come on, it's not as much fun if we don't all have our Pokeballs out.
I haven't bought mine yet.
Take the show with you by listening on the Sports Radio 810 mobile app at 810WHB.com or by searching for Almost Entirely Sports wherever you get your podcasts.
I love walking into a Home Depot and go down the wood section.
This is Almost Entirely Sports on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
There was a time earlier today when I thought we might have a relatively thin number of topics to pick from tonight. No Royals today, so we talk about the fact that, they're continuing to play baseball. Thought we'd talk a ton about all of the interesting NBA storylines as the NBA in general had a fascinating weekend with some Game 7 action. I don't know if you guys noticed, but the Phoenix Suns are up 1-0 in the Western Conference Finals, something that I think everyone should know about.
Never heard of
It's just the best team in basketball is all.
Kentucky Wildcat legend, Devin Booker, triple-double.
His first career triple-double. I saw somebody tweet that it was in career game 420. I don't know that that's true, but I don't know why they would lie about it. So I figured we would go pretty basketball heavy over the course of the show today. And then we'd have some guests that would help us bring in a little Chiefs and a little Royals. We're going to have our friend Matt Derrick of Chiefs Digest in studio at 8 for the entire hour. And at 9 o'clock, we'll talk to Max Rieper of Royals Review. Again, thinking we'd do some mini camp observations with Matt. We'd talk about where the Royals are at right now with Max. And then the rest of the day began to unfold. After that, there was the news that I was talking to our own Todd Lebo earlier. He may have actually broken the news. He certainly was the one that asked Dayton more about it, and then Dayton put this out here before the Royals had announced it. Aldaberto Mondesi back to the IL. Oblique on the other side.
No,
What?
IL. It is the IL.
It's the IL.
Yeah.
Don't
Sorry.
you bleep
Sorry.
and correct me ever. When have I ever been wrong about anything?
So you screaming there?
Yeah.
Thank you, because that somehow fixed my headphones.
I screamed and your eyes widened
No
and I
joke,
thought that
I
something
could
bad happened.
barely hear anything, and now all of a sudden your scream somehow the echoes reverberated and fixed the headphone jack, and I can now hear out of both ears crystal clear.
What most people don't know, actually, I guess you
Hallelujah.
don't know this either, Rudy, is that 810 runs like the factory in Monsters Inc. off of screen power, and it's why Petro is so valuable. We don't pay electric bills around here.
It's true.
Mondesi goes to the IL, and then you get ready for 2 o'clock to come around, and this baby's humming for a month. We might be good until October just off of pure Serin Mondesi energy. Just because it's all Monsters Inc. style.
This is one of the funniest things. Your screaming fixed my headset.
I've perfectly explained it. I don't see what your confusion is here.
It's just so good.
It's just usually we're good all the way through. We've had so much power, so much energy already surging through the station that I was able to put us over the top there. Fix your headphones. You're welcome.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
So I thought we were going to talk about Mondesi going to the IL.
And then I made a sad fans on the Reddit Philadelphia 76ers edition.
Oh, yeah. Before that, Beards had planned and worked on a Sad Fans on Reddit 76ers edition because they just had a terrible playoff that ended in a heartbreaking way. After a day, 2 days after, the day after, the Nets get eliminated by the Bucks, and then all of that we were going to go do all that NBA stuff. We are still going to do Sad Fans. Sad Fans takes precedence. Like, we're going to play the Sad Fans.
Yeah, I just want to say, certainly not like Beards is like least favorite coaches in the NBA, or like, and by trash talk the most, it's like I've heard him say like one bad thing about each of the Bucks and the Hawks head coach, and here they are in the finals.
Yep. Those dudes are not getting fired. Mike Budenholzer is going to be there for a minute.
I haven't said anything about Nate McMillan.
I feel like you maybe had a little bit, but it was definitely mostly Budenholzer.
Lloyd Pierce, definitely.
That might be it. You know, that might be true.
Wait, who? I'm confused now.
They fired Lloyd Pierce mid-season.
Oh,
and Nate
bleep,
McMillan
I forgot about that.
is now
yeah, okay, fair point.
Going to end up. He's got to keep that job. He's in the conference finals.
Yeah. Fair point for Beards.
So we were going to do all that, and then Aldaberto Mondesi goes to the IL. I started thinking, all right, well, we'll start talking about Mondesi because I got a lot of thoughts about what you do with Mondesi at this point. And, you know, I understand everyone's frustrations, but here's where I think you can be realistic and what all this actually means.
It's frustrating.
And then Frank Clark got arrested in Los Angeles for illegal possession of a firearm.
Happens to the best of them.
And it turns out that we're going to have plenty for you over tonight's 3 hours. I want to start with Frank Clark, partially because it's the newest news, and at this point we have a limited amount of information that I think is ultimately going to make the conversation move along relatively smoothly. There's also a handful of other things going on around the sports world that I thought we would get to today. We'll simply see. But here is the gist of it. TMZ had the report first because TMZ always has this bleep first.
I had 2 notifications from TMZ involving 2 separate football players being arrested.
Yeah, because
I forget the other one.
Zaven Collins, the Tulsa linebacker.
Yes, the Cardinals rookie.
I think he got arrested for a DUI or something.
Yes.
So the gist of it for Frank
Big
Clark
day for TMZ.
is that he was arrested according to TMZ, and they've got like the screenshot. I say reportedly, but like TMZ doesn't miss on this stuff very often. And when they do, you remember it. I think they had Prince dying like too soon or something. I don't remember. Or no, it was he's a rapper. I think they had Lil Wayne like on death's door or something. But he actually,
right.
I don't remember the specifics of that.
We do make fun of TMZ quite a bit, and sometimes it's understandable so. But also, it seems like they are just always on top of this stuff.
The arrests and the deaths, TMZ usually has it.
TMZ generally has it.
So according to TMZ,
and when they don't, it's really bad.
Frank Clark was arrested for what could be a felony illegal possession of a firearm in the Los Angeles area on Sunday night. The report says that he had an Uzi in his Lambo SUV, which officers noticed in an open duffel bag during a, quote, routine traffic stop. According to the Kansas City Star, report from Sam McDowell, that Clark was released on bail, $35,000, and was released about 2:30 this afternoon Pacific time. So he was, according to TMZ, still under arrest, still behind bars whenever the story came out. Since then, he's apparently posted bail.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the one thing with this, and it's probably why we'll end up talking about Mondesi still relatively soon, is because I don't think we have quite enough information here to go off of. We also know at this point, per multiple reports, including Matt Derrick, the Chiefs are aware of this, obviously, but the less obvious part is that they're apparently not attempting to release a statement anytime soon. They're basically giving out no comments right now. Not surprising, I guess, because I don't know what they say at this point, other than we have no real comment at this time.
They've also been we've seen it the last couple years of not necessarily rushing to make statements, right? It's kind of more of and not saying that they should, right? Like if you don't have much to, honestly, releasing the statement saying we don't have anything to say, while it's standard, I guess. Like I don't necessarily need the Chiefs to release that within the first 30 minutes of the news breaking. Like I get it. I understand.
Yeah, I don't know what there is to say here necessarily. It is funny though that you're right. The Chiefs are always they are happy to let other things play out or other people to make statements first if they can not lead on that front. So we're talking about possession of one illegal firearm, one I don't know if it's unregistered. I don't know what makes it illegal in this specific instance. I don't think we have enough details for all of that. But at Real Bird Lawyer on Twitter, a Chiefs fan, does the It's Always Sunny in Chiefs Kingdom podcast, and is a actual lawyer, not just a bird lawyer, was tweeting about some of the details of it that I thought were kind of interesting, brought some points to the surface. One saying that what he's charged with as of right now is possessing an illegal weapon, he says that assuming no further charges, he doesn't think it'll be a huge deal unless for some reason the feds want to charge him, which could make it a bigger deal, but they, generally speaking, according to at Real Bird Lawyer, they usually have more important things to do. Mm-hmm. Also, he says any defense attorney worthy of repping an NFL player is going to be able to work a defense to possession of a bag in a car with a gun in it. NFL players frequently carry guns and occasionally get criminally charged for it, but I can't think of any off the top of my head that have faced any significant penalty for merely possessing a gun illegally. So they're going to, with all of that there being said, there are going to be a bunch of layers of this, and a bunch of this is going to pan out slowly. It would be pretty surprising to me, based off of that and some pretty surface level research and understanding, it would be pretty surprising to me if there are really serious federal charges here. It would not surprise me if there's something on the NFL front of, the scuffing the shield or whatever, the sanctity of the league. I don't know if it would be the Chiefs or if it would be from the NFL. My guess is that it would be something relatively unified where the NFL could, not even saying will at this point. We have such minimal info here. It wouldn't surprise me, is what I'll say. It wouldn't surprise me if the NFL said, we're suspending Frank Clark for the first 2 games of the season for conduct detrimental to the league, which is such a vague umbrella. You can put it over anything. It doesn't matter if you're arrested, if you are detained, if you are charged with something, none of that actually matters once you get to the court of the NFL, because they can do whatever they want. You're an employee of a private organization. It doesn't have to be criminal. The CBA is pretty vague on a lot of that stuff. The NFL and NFLPA have their agreements that that have been much maligned over the years, and on things that seem to come through as being more detrimental than this. He wasn't illegally discharging an illegal firearm. Nobody got hurt or anything like that. He wasn't, as far as we know, there was no substance issues, whatever. You can go back to Bashad Breeland from last year, who was arrested with I think there was weed and open alcohol containers. He wasn't suspended for that incident. He was suspended for an earlier incident, and as of right now, I'd be pretty surprised if he got suspended a year later for the particulars of that story. So I don't think there's any guarantee that Frank Clark gets suspended. I don't think there's any guarantee that he doesn't. I don't have anything to guarantee in terms of the actual legal ramifications of all of these things. But from the NFL side, it's going to be much like the Chiefs are doing right now, kind of a wait-and-see situation.
So, because the most recent player, I'm sure there's been other ones, but at least the player that popped in my head was Alden Smith, who's obviously Alden Smith back in 2013 was charged with 3 felony counts of 3 felony weapon charges, and then he also ended up with 2 misdemeanor counts of driving under the influence.
Yeah,
he pled no contest and ultimately was sentenced to 12 days in jail for the weapon charges, 12 days in jail for the DUI charges, which again does like Frank Clark doesn't have that.
Right.
And then ultimately, community service, paid some money, yada yada. And then ultimately, the NFL did suspend him for 9 games. Now he was also
That's a repeat offender.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Now, it is worth noting with Frank Clark in Michigan had domestic violence charges that ended up, I think, got settled, if memory serves, and he got kicked off the team there. Those are not, and he was not an NFL player during that time. So my best guess here, and this is something that Matt will be a good source on whenever I talk to him in a little while, but my understanding at this point is that he would not be a repeat offender in the eyes of the NFL because it wasn't while he was in the NFL. And these are not one-to-one, because even in the public eye, I mean, we went through this with Tyreek Hill with a bunch of stuff just being up in the air and not knowing where everything was going to end up landing. Tyreek Hill's original domestic violence story was from college years. If there would have ended up being a verifiable incident or some more definitive charges that would have landed on him at the NFL level, I wouldn't have been surprised to see the NFL have gone about that as if he was a repeat offender, because that is such a tough thing to be like, no, it's no big deal. Now, ultimately, that whole thing ended up having a whole lot more layers into it where Tyreek Hill has not been suspended for an NFL game. And at this point, I don't think that's a mistake. It's just a very complicated story that spans years and all sorts of twists and turns that if you're listening to this show, you probably have a pretty good idea about. But particularly with Clark, and specifically with him, very, very few things would surprise me that land anywhere near sort of what seems like a middle ground of if he had a very severe punishment, I would be pretty surprised. I think there's something is going to come from it, even if it just ends up being some minor charges, if he pleads guilty or no contest or whatever, and it just sort of rolls off his back. That also wouldn't surprise me very much.
Yeah, and again, like I am not a lawyer, a bird lawyer, or any kind of animal lawyer. So
you're not a mammal lawyer, you're not an avian lawyer, you're not a fish lawyer.
This is obviously, I am speaking just, this is about the best educated guess I can make. Alden Smith, a person who had even, again, a history of other criminal records where the sentencing could have been much worse than what it was, and it probably been justified. I'd be pretty stunned if Frank Clark got any sort of severe criminal charge, like any punishment.
As
right?
things stand currently,
as things currently stand, and part of that is because also he's going to have a good lawyer because he can afford a really good lawyer, and that helps. So I'll be stunned if he as based off what we know, if he faces any sort of real significant criminal. Again, there'll probably be something, maybe some community service, right? Maybe you pay a fine, probably some little thing. And my guess is there's some sort of NFL suspension, but I don't really expect anything that big either, just based off what we know right now. It might 4 games even still seems like I would be surprised if it's quite that much, but it feels like he probably gets at least 2.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the NFL and their sentencing patterns is that there is no pattern, and that you really just never know.
Yeah, inconsistent.
Like you really just you can kind of come up with some educated guesses on stuff, but you can 2 people can make the same mistake within a year of each other and have very different, like the situation can be identical and they get suspended for a different set amount of games because that's just kind of how the NFL seems to work.
One other element, I'm glad you went that route, because the other thing is specifically with the Chiefs, we also have a relatively, unfortunately, I guess, a relatively decent sample size of how the Chiefs handle stuff like this. So a couple quick just data points, then I'll connect them all. But let me put all the points up on the board here first. You have Tyreek Hill with the stuff out of college, then you have Tyreek Hill with the stories that ended up coming through a couple of years ago, and how all of that ended up panning out. Don't even worry about the ending of that right now, but think about the processes of it. Then you have Frank Clark. They brought him in as a free agent, even though this was in his past from Michigan. Just the process of it, they brought him in. You have Kareem Hunt, who has an incident that is on video, and also some other stuff that I'll come back to. He ends up getting released shortly after the video comes out. Those are the main 3 that come to mind right out of the gate. You have a couple things that seem similar and a couple things that are really important differences to keep in mind here. One is that, again, Tyreek Hill and Frank Clark both had stuff from college that ended up being sort of a second chance sort of thing. But the most important differentiations to make, I think, are in the Kareem Hunt versus Tyreek Hill processes, where we are led to believe, and I do tend to believe this, I can't say any of this with 100% certainty because I'm not Clark Hunt, But we are led to believe that Tyreek Hill was relatively forthright with the Chiefs throughout his entire process. The one, with his kid and on being with the Chiefs at the time.
The professional one.
Right.
Yeah.
We are led to believe that he was forthright and in pretty open communication with the Chiefs, and hey, here's what happened. And then as more evidence came out, it seems as if the evidence supported what Tyreek Hill's account was. With Kareem Hunt, we are led to believe, had been told by the Chiefs and by Clark Hunt, that he was not forthright throughout the process, that he lied to the Chiefs about what actually happened and whatever the incident was. And whenever the video came out and it showed him to be doing apparently things he had not admitted to doing to the Chiefs themselves, they said, we're not going to sit here and just let you lie to us and then also have to defend you in the court of public opinion, when they were willing to do that for Tyreek Hill and say, we think you're riding with us here. You've been honest with us. We're going to go ahead and stand up whenever, we're not going to make this move just to make a move whenever we believe what you're saying and we feel like you've been forthright with us. Also, there are many elements here of how it benefits the team. Tyreek Hill is more valuable than Kareem Hunt is and all of that stuff.
Positions.
Also, a handful of people.
How good you are at those positions.
At least some people had tweeted about how the Chiefs should cut Frank Clark. They couldn't if they wanted to. They literally, if they this is not going to happen. But if they cut Frank Clark this year, his cap hit would go from nearly $26 million to nearly $39 million. It's a bad contract.
Just how sometimes you say they can't, but they actually physically couldn't. But no, in this situation, if they cut Frank Clark, somebody else also has to get cut. That might be a player you really like.
Frank Clark was sort of an interesting cap situation well before today.
Yeah.
So that just keep all that. You could do a post June 1st cut, and I think it would his dead money would be $25.3 million. They'd say $500,000, and that rest of that dead would come up next year. Anyway, they're not cutting Frank Clark.
No.
I don't think cutting a guy off of an illegal firearm possession is common anyway, and doing it, especially if I'm scrolling down the list here, because honestly, I'm not 100% sure about the right name to pull because they don't have a whole lot of depth at defensive end right now. But to yank a name from way down the depth chart.
Tim Ward.
If Omari Cobb or Tim Ward or whatever had a little, I'm sorry to put their name. That's totally
I
unfair.
like you, Tim Ward.
But, if you got one of these dudes that was a mini camp tryout and got the contract and then ultimately then he gets arrested for literally anything, you might just see that show up on the waiver wire report later that day. It's not happening to anybody on a knee-jerk reaction a couple hours after the fact for anybody who exists up the depth chart and up the side. That's not good. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just simply saying that is 100% the truth. Anyway, with all that being said, I don't expect the Chiefs to do anything formal, probably anytime terribly soon. What I would expect is that this will play out. We'll see what he ends up pleading, and we'll see if anything else comes of it. And hopefully, for his sake, for the Chiefs' sake, whatever, there's not anything else that this ends up leading to. Hopefully, he doesn't have a whole bunch more illegal guns somewhere, right? If it's just as it is at this moment, we'll probably see the NFL say that they'll look into it. And maybe he'll get a game or two for conduct detrimental to the league. The incredible, again, umbrella phrase that could suspend anybody for anything. And then maybe he'll miss a game or two. And maybe he won't. I would be surprised if it was anything terribly extreme just based off things currently stand. The bigger threat or concern or whatever would be if this leads to anything else in terms of federal prosecution, in terms of any other charges, in terms of anything else. And right now, it doesn't seem like that's happening. So in the grand scheme of things, so it seems relatively okay.
Yeah.
He didn't
You wish
hurt
it didn't,
anybody.
You wish it didn't happen.
For sure.
But I like when it's all said and done, it seems like there should be minimal punishment for Frank Clark, and I don't.
He illegally owned a gun that he shouldn't have been owning.
Absolutely.
So if that comes with some sort of fine or something, and if it comes with some form of game or 2-game suspension or whatever, you're not going to hear me complaining about that as being deeply unjust or anything like that. It's just not the worst, most complicated, difficult thing that we've had to talk about on this radio show around the Kansas City Chiefs in the last few years.
It's pretty straightforward as things stand, really, right?
Seems like
he shouldn't have done it, and there probably should be some sort of minor punishment, whatever that is, right? Just based off what other guys get, there probably, again, some sort of fine. I imagine maybe some community service hours involved, NFL maybe suspends them for a couple games, and we just kind of all move on.
It was kind of funny, and not ha-ha funny, but blow air out your nose.
Yeah.
Funny. I hope I didn't get a booger on my mic cover there. I don't think I did. I think I'm good. I was, as that story was breaking, and Beard stuck his head into the office. He said, "Did you see the Frank Clark thing?" And I went, "No." I don't even know if I told you this at the time, Beards. I was reading our friend Nate Taylor's story about Chris Jones and Frank Clark on playing defensive end, and how the plan is for Chris Jones to play outside on first and second downs and kick in on third down, and how there was a rep in minicamp. You should go read Nate's story. There was a rep in minicamp where, I don't know why I'm doing this voice, where Frank Clark and Chris Jones both beat Orlando Brown and Mike Remmers and got to Patrick Mahomes at the same time, and that's what the Chiefs' vision is, the future. I'm doing that voice because
That's
it's
your Nate Taylor
minicamp.
impersonation. I get
It's
it.
definitely not. My Nate Taylor impression is they both got back there at the same time. They got back there to the quarterback. They hit him. They didn't hit him because it was minicamp. They're at the quarterback. It's my limited fake Nate impression because it's
Not
got
bad.
I can't emulate Nate's speaking voice, but I can try to get
The high pitch.
to the high pitch.
Yeah.
The quintessential big moment. Nate making a high pitched voice. So I think that's that. Obviously, we'll talk about it with Matt Derrick here in about 30 minutes whenever he's in the building, and we'll see if he's got anything else and what he thinks about how this stands up to other somewhat similar but not directly super comparable issues the Chiefs have faced that have shown up in the NFL and all of that stuff. We will take a break. Whenever we come back, we'll talk about something less frustrating. Aldaberto Mondesi. If you've ever wondered what it looks like for Fernando Tatis Jr. to be made out of, those long LED, like the lights that you see in office buildings and stuff, and if you drop them, they shatter into a billion pieces.
Pieces is not the right word. It really is dust.
It's basically dust.
It's basically just glass dust.
Yeah, Aldaberto Mondesi at this point is basically Fernando Tatis made out of that stuff. And it makes me really sad. We're going to talk about it for as long as I can stomach whenever we come back.
Want more Almost Entirely Sports? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 Facebook page. This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
We're in the pit of despair of the Chiefs.
I'm not the pit of misery. Dilly. Sorry. I don't even like that commercial.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Well,
We're idiots.
oh no, disagree. I think we nailed it.
I agree.
I was gonna actually say, let's take a second and recap what we said 5 minutes ago during the last segment. We said that if this is the only thing that really comes of all of this for Frank Clark, if there's not some other charges that this either leads to or reveals, it's probably not going to be a huge deal. And then during the commercial break, literally 3 minutes ago, Sam McDowell of the Kansas City Star tweets out a news story and an update. Sam tweets, quote, Chiefs defensive end Frank Clark was also previously arrested in March on a gun charge during a traffic stop, the Star has learned through California Highway Patrol records. The arrest Sunday was his second gun charge in 3 months.
So a little different.
Matt Derrick quote tweeted that, saying it was March 13th, released that day at a $35,000 bond. So I'm going to read you the new parts of the story here from Sam McDowell, as updated literally 5 minutes ago. 3 months earlier, on March 13th, Clark and another man, Charles Smith, were arrested after officers observed and recovered 2 loaded firearms inside the vehicle during a traffic stop, according to California Highway Patrol records. Then the details of Sunday night, bailing out thin. On March 12th at 11:45 p.m. Pacific time, so that March 12th, March 13th arrest, Clark and Smith were pulled over because the vehicle in which they were traveling did not display a front license plate, according to a police report from California Highway Patrol. The officers noticed the muzzle of a firearm in a bag in the back seat and recovered 2 loaded firearms, 1 rifle, and 1 handgun from the vehicle, the report said. Clark was released on $35,000 bond the following morning. And there you go. Remarkably similar to the story we just talked about happening last night.
Yeah.
You go very quickly. I'm really interested to hear how people will listen to the podcast of this show later on, because you go pretty quickly from one incident that, as long as it's a standalone thing, is probably not a huge deal, to what becomes a pattern of behavior that also, 3 months apart, did not get resolved. Because here's the thing. This is going to go from being, I think my tone is going to go from being very understanding and forgiving to being a little harsher. Because a singular mistake, like having an illegal, I mean, like, you have to acquire it, and maybe you acquired it illegally, and also, but like, gun laws in different states are different. So even that, I'm willing to just by default assume
It's a gun that could have been legal in one state that's illegal in California.
Sure.
Thing,
I
yeah.
have no idea if that's true or not, but I'm willing to extend some hope and some hopeful understanding in that sort of sense. But whenever it happens after the exact same bleep happened to you in March, and your solution is to change nothing, and then to get knocked for it again, it goes from being a stupid mistake to being a stupid mistake. That's where the tone has all the difference there. You go, boy, you should have really known better, but you know, it's a standalone thing, and just please, for the love of God, don't do this again, and don't have a whole bunch of illegally owned firearms back at your house. Just and don't have it connect to anything else. Don't have some Alden Smith stuff. But as long as that's not the case, and then we find out 5 minutes after coming to that conclusion, to be as generous as possible as we could possibly be here, that we're already on issue number 2. And at this point, you know what happens whenever you're on issue number 2? You start wondering about, is there a 3 or 4? And I don't know. But man, it is the all-time quickest that my attempting to extend some goodwill and some hopeful optimism has been thrown back in my face in radio history. And just a very quick sort of glance across Chiefs Twitter at the moment. It seems like that's pretty much the way most people are going right now, is you go from, well, this This isn't very
Not
good.
great,
It's
yeah.
not very good, but I mean, I guess, whatever. It certainly could have been worse. Well, this is now a pattern of not great behavior. It seems so similar.
Yep.
It is 35 grand and a night in jail and the exact same charges as far as I can tell. And also now I have to imagine I'm absolutely leaving my area of expertise here. So if somebody brushes me back a little bit, fine. I have to think that having 2 of those charges is worse than having one of those charges twice, if you know what I mean. Like, I imagine that if you get charged for that, for whatever felony possession of a legal firearm is, if you get charged for it and I get charged for it, I bet our combined punishments would be worse than one person getting charged with it twice. And now the immediate follow-up question is, do we think that this has merely happened twice now? And I don't know. At this point now, we're in total reckless speculation, and who knows?
But it makes you wonder.
But it really does, because it's just not very smart.
No.
It's just not very bright, man.
What about that $39 million?
I'm gonna do one more little tiptoe. Oh God, Chris Paul's out again for game 2.
So it's Kawhi, though, so it's fine.
Probably, yeah.
It's been a rough little
5-minute
15
stretch.
Yeah, 10. You got Devin Booker still.
I'm trying to figure out a way that I can frame this that isn't a huge overreaction. So I am trying to be sort of gentle around the edges of this. But we're gonna eventually, even if it's not until 9:00 tonight, we're eventually gonna talk about Aldaberto Mondesi. I love watching Mondesi play baseball. Beard shrugged at me. Do you know who's on the show at 9? Beards, have you been paying attention?
I know.
We're not gonna talk to. Do you know?
I do.
Who's on at 9?
Max Rieper.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Wouldn't have surprised me if we had gotten that wrong.
I think he thinks Max, though, is an NBA guy.
We're not going to talk to Max about Frank Clark. But I love watching Mondesi play baseball. He played the entire shortened season last year.
Yeah.
Whenever he's played this year, he's looked fantastic, but he's, at least for a while now, going to have injury prone around him. And whatever the Royals do, that will be a part of the equation. Calculated risks. We do this all the time. We've talked about this with unvaccinated athletes to really just get every single SEO optimized phrase into this segment. Your unvaccinated athletes have a higher risk of missing time because they're more likely to catch COVID by a significant amount than the vaccinated athletes. Calculated risks. Whenever you bring in players that have things from their past that make you wonder about, I mean, you can do character if you want, and sometimes that can be a super loaded phrase, oftentimes a very racially loaded phrase that, again, I try to tiptoe and at least understand all of the landmines that come with that. Marcus Peters got hit with a whole lot more of character concerns than I think his reputation had earned, and people gave Kareem Hunt a longer leash. I don't know why. Whatever. But whenever you do, it was a story whenever the Chiefs traded for Frank Clark. It's like, oh yeah, they did just bring another guy who had a issue of a domestic violence charge in college, but he was great in his opening presser. I was there for his opening press conference. He handled questions pretty well. He answered the questions, and at every turn and from the Chiefs and everywhere was just like, no, we trust this guy. This is a good person with good judgment. By the way, I don't know that having whatever the illegalities of these firearms are doesn't mean you're a bad person. I'm not telling you that Frank Clark's a terrible person. I'm not willing to say that. But having good judgment is really important. It's why the vaccine questions are reasonable, even though Danny Cannell thinks they're not. Because you need to have good judgment about your health. That's why having good judgment about playing basketball in the offseason comes up. Not riding motorcycles shows up in contracts because you need to have good judgment about your surroundings. It's the people that you're around. It's something that I think for a lot of us, and maybe not for every single person, but for a lot of us, it's something that is just banged into our heads as children and growing up, and as teenagers even more so. You need to have good judgment about these various situations. Assuming that someone has poor judgment based on nothing is typically some form of stereotyping.
Yes.
Having these multiple data points now on your resume makes you start asking the questions about, wait a second. Can we feel good about whatever it is that's going on with you, whatever you're bringing to the table, about you having good judgment in these situations? If you get arrested for illegal gun possession in March, and then you get arrested for illegal gun possession again 3 months later, it's not very good judgment. We live in America, by the way. I don't know if anyone's paid attention to the news. It's not incredibly difficult to have a legally owned gun. Now, again, the rules in Texas and California are very different, to my understanding. But if you don't want to jump through the loopholes or whatever, but you do want to carry a gun around, and then you get pulled over, even if it's for some petty, stupid little reason like not having a plate on the front. If you run into that issue and you're arrested because you have a gun you have for any form of illegal reason, now we're on at least strike number 2 just within 3 months. Does not seem like you're exhibiting very good judgment there. It becomes a part of your entire story, a team that is paying you or would trade for you or whatever. And again, this is not to say Frank Clark had a domestic violence incident in college, therefore the chief should have known he was going to illegally drive guns around in LA 6 or 7 years later or whatever. Not saying that. But if you zoom out far enough, it becomes a really unflattering pattern of behavior. And it's why the tone in this show from segment 1 to segment 2 was incredibly different based off of information we got during a commercial break, because it goes from being a offshoot, a standalone, an exception, a blip, a mistake, an accident even, to wondering about a pattern of behavior. I will mention again that Frank Clark does have the highest salary cap hit on the Chiefs roster this year, and that wasn't good before any of this came out.
Credible Hulk says his biggest issue is Team Z said he's one of the best defensive players in the league.
I am glad that Credible Hulk mentioned that, because I would be lying if I said I did not notice that as I was working on going through the story and everything, and sort of chuckle a little bit. The TMZ story, I wonder if they've added anything else about the second blip here. Yeah. Oh, this is interesting. At 4:05 p.m. Pacific time, so this would have been right at 6, I think, right? A source close to Clark tells us the NFL star claims the weapon belongs to a member of his security team. We're told attorney Alex Spiro will represent him moving forward in the case. So his defense is, it's not mine. And maybe it's not. And maybe both of those guns are his friends, or maybe the security team. Again, let's go that route. Let's just take all that at face value. So you get totally face value. Last time, 2 guns was with him and a friend, and they both belonged to his friend. And the gun in the rest from last night belonged to a security team. Okay, let's just take both of those things at face value. You just got dinged for this 3 months ago. Get a label maker and put security team gun, property of big security, big buff security guy. I'm imagining the guy from Lilo and Stitch with the glasses, just an absolute hulking.
Yeah.
That's every security guy to me is automatically the dude from Lilo and Stitch.
I will point out it's probably a bad thing for the security team if you don't have your gun on you and it's in the guy you're supposed to protect's car.
Yeah, that's not great.
To be fair, I'm also not a security guard, so I'm not an expert in these matters.
And
maybe you want to keep it there.
And let's say that the security guard's like, hey, man, you're driving. Here, have my gun. So you can have a gun with, by yourself or whatever. I'm assuming he was arrested as the only person in his car. We do not know that for a fact, I suppose. You just 3 months ago, you got arrested for having an illegal gun in your car. 2 of them. Mm-hmm. It would probably be worth being more careful about that. 3 months later.
Yeah.
I don't know. We can take another break.
Oh,
At this point,
what's
I don't.
What's gonna happen then?
Yeah, great point.
Oh boy.
Oh my God.
Would
you like to? Would you like to see? Would you like me to read you a tweet that this guy should be ashamed of?
Devin Booker's been suspended for the Western Conference.
Don't you bleeping say that.
I don't want that. I love Devin Booker.
Joe Moore on Twitter. Stupid.
More what?
You wait. Frank won't be able to play for a while. Good thing Joshua Kane do.
Or what?
No, Beards, that's the other joke.
At JB Brisco, at Beards McFly, at Not That Rudy, at Sports Radio 810. Just do it already. This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
Tell you what, this has been the most enjoyable show we've done in a while.
Oh, for sure. Stupid Chiefs.
Stupid damn Chiefs.
On Sports Radio 810, WHB.
No news broke during that segment, so I guess that's good.
Let's see. Yeah, no, I don't see anything.
Let me talk about Mondesi for a second. We'll probably have to play some of this audio later on. In fact, Beers, why don't you go ahead and grab me that first one from Dayton Moore today? Because Dayton Moore was actually the one to announce that Aldaberto Mondesi was going to the IL, and our own Todd Lebo was out there in person because it was the See You in the Major Leagues event that the Royals do, and so Dayton talked about that, I believe, answering a question from Lebo, who was, again, in person, holding out his phone, recording an interview the old-fashioned way. And Dayton Moore broke the news and talked a little bit about Mondesi going back to the injured list.
This time it's a left oblique. I mean, he's just devastated, and we just feel so bad for him. We're obviously a much different team when he's on the field, and to replace him, we're going to call up Ryan O'Hearn.
So is this a different oblique than the other one?
Yeah, it's the other side.
So, I mean, it sucks. Because here's the thing. Here's the thing that I'd like to make clear. A couple quickies. One, the Royals are so much better whenever Aldaberto Mondesi plays. By record, by having him in the lineup, by his defense, all of that stuff. It was his first or second game back from this most recent previous stint where he had, I think he had a homer in 2 of those 3 games. He had one game with 2 incredible defensive plays. Yeah. He just, I'm not exaggerating. I'm really not. He looks as good playing shortstop as anybody. And then to have power from the shortstop position is unbelievably difficult. It's unbelievably rare, and it does so many incredible things for your lineup, for your team as a whole, for your roster construction, all of that. And I believe it was 1 game that he missed last year in the truncated season, and I think that is still very, very valid because it's not like it's the wear and tear of this year that's gotten him down. This dude just simply has not played. He got hurt right before the season, and he's played a dozen games or something to this point.
10 games currently.
So all of that has to exist all together. It is a combo package. We've talked about Sammy Watkins a million times. Whenever you sign Sammy Watkins, the Ravens especially, now they sign Sammy Watkins. If the Ravens sign Sammy Watkins to play 17 regular season games, they're fools. Yep. That pattern is not there for Sammy Watkins. Whenever he is on the field, he made the Chiefs' offense better. Last year, less so. I think he was either dealing with some stuff the whole year or he's lost a step. But there's incredible talent there with the guy who makes the team better, who has a hard time being healthy and being on the field. The Royals have a couple years of arbitration for Mondesi even after this one. And to trade him right now, to put him on the block right now, I don't think makes sense.
It really doesn't.
You're going to see the Sixers do something a little bit similar with Ben Simmons, where they're going to trade him at his lowest possible value. For Mondesi, it's even worse, because right now you're trading a hope. You know what you get for a hope of a guy? I don't know, maybe a little something, but honestly, I would rather, at least for a while, let the Royals ride with him and see if they can reap the benefits of what they're going to have to be very patient to ultimately see. You get an infield with him and Bobby Witt Jr. on the left side. Nicky Lopez is hitting again a little bit and is so good defensively. You want to throw Nicky Lopez at second base and keep Witt out in right field or something? Holy smokes. There's not a better third base, shortstop, second base defensive trio in baseball.
And the way Nick Prado's hitting in the minors, and he was a guy when drafted who was known as a defensive first baseman. Like Nick Prado is a very skilled defensive player who is now all of a sudden crushing a baseball. That's a young infield where Mondesi's the old guy.
Yeah.
At 25.
And Nicky Lopez certainly is not does not have the ceiling of the rest of those guys.
Absolutely.
But if he's your worst player in the infield and is playing like he is right now, no guarantee, obviously.
But is at least providing.
If he's your 9-hitter, it's fine. If he's your 7-hitter, you're boned.
Yeah, and like you can deal with one guy in your lineup who's not hitting great when he's providing excellent defensive value.
Yeah, 100%.
And so like you can live with one Nicky Lopez, especially if Bobby Witt is who we think Bobby Witt's going to be. Mondesi's obviously he doesn't have to be 162 games healthy, but ideally just 100. 110.
120 games would hit the button every year for the rest of natural time. For
so
100
happy.
games, I might do it. This season feels kind of lost. It's not just the losing streaks and then some you beat the Red Sox. Woo-hoo. But without Mondesi out there, I don't think that you should have any real delusions of grandeur for the Royals' ability to turn things around right now.
This team can't get to the playoffs if Mondesi's not out there.
And at this point, if you got healthy Mondesi from this point forward, I don't know if this team's getting back to the playoffs.
They're probably still not, but they're at least I would say talent. They're about on equal talent with probably the,
think about what that means.
Wild card team.
Think about what you're saying.
Yeah.
That Mondesi makes the difference there. Mondesi takes them from an absolute non-contender to maybe having the talent to contend. As one player in a 9-man lineup, that doesn't happen very often. Mike Trout has not made that difference for the Angels consistently because the Angels have some real garbo around him. And the Royals right now have some real garbo because you're trying to, Hunter Dozier get back to what you hoped he would be. Jorge Soler has been a nightmare this year, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they're issued Nicky Lopez. They don't have one Nicky Lopez. They've got like 8 of them, it seems. And it's not totally fair, but it's not been great.
We'll always have opening day for Michael A. Taylor.
But whenever you have the opportunity to have that, here's what I'll say. If the Royals tried to trade Aldaberto Mondesi right now at his lowest possible value for some prospect, I would want, if I was not a Royals fan, if I wasn't in Kansas City, if I wasn't whatever, I would want my team to be on the other side of that trade.
Yeah.
We do that, we did that for Andrew effing Benintendi. Andrew Benintendi was, if he was just the guy that he was a couple of years ago, maybe they could get some nice production out of him. And they have gotten nice production out of Andrew Benintendi. But he's not Aldaberto Mondesi. I would rather be on the other side of this. And it's not a mental thing. It's not a change of scenery thing. His body keeps catching. And that sucks. And I don't know that he'll ever be fully healthy. But if I have to gamble on one side of that, you give me a chance for another minor league bat or to see if Aldaberto Mondesi can be the MVP caliber player he looks like, I'll take the latter every time.
You are listening to Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
private person, so I hope you guys know that I'm really not doing this for attention. I think that representation and visibility are so important. Reaction to Nassib's announcement immediate throughout the NFL and the sports world overall. Ty Lue saying today Clippers are going to once again be without Kawhi Leonard for Game 2 Tuesday night in the Western Conference Final Playoff Series against the Phoenix Suns. Suns up a game in the series after winning Game 1 on Sunday night. Game 2 on Tuesday night on ESPN TV, ESPN Radio, and the ESPN app. Sixers head coach Doc Rivers saying today team has a plan to address Ben Simmons' shooting woes this summer. ESPN's Brian Windhorst with Bart and Hahn today on ESPN Radio.
Ben Simmons' value in the modern NBA is very, very high, but he needs to regain his confidence to remember that value.
And what's Windy think an option for Simmons would be this summer with playing basketball?
He can pivot and maybe show some things and rebuild his confidence, and that could either open an opportunity in Philly or open an opportunity for a team who sees how he might play off the ball and say, hey, we can build our team around this guy. Let's call it the Sixers.
Our Brian Windhorst today appearing with Bart and Hahn. First intermission, Lightning up 3-0 at home against the Islanders in game number 5 of their Stanley Cup playoff series. Steven Stamkos scoring the game's first goal in the opening minute.
This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
If you don't make your cheek pink, you're not staying awake.
Exactly.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
We talked to Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com. Every Monday that we have a show, I think. I don't think we've brushed you off at any point, Matt. And he's in studio, by the way, for this entire
Which I'm never
hour.
doing again, by the way.
Yeah, don't. I know.
Because, we're cursed.
We're cursed, and you're driving. You can't be tweeting. And what are you doing if not tweeting at all times? I'm projecting. That's how I think.
I thought I was going to jail there for a second because I was using the powers of text, speech to text, for tweeting.
Yeah.
On 435, and I guess I'm probably getting more information than I should here because maybe there'll be some somebody in a pointy hat that comes and talks to me and everything.
Yeah.
But I was using hands-free. I was not. I was doing it the right way.
Exactly.
And I used speech to text to tweet something, and as I did this, a sheriff's department vehicle came right off on the ramp next to me, and So I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad that you're here.
I'm never doing this again.
Yeah, that's totally understandable.
Because God knows what's going to happen the next time.
We were talking right as you got here that obviously you were listening through the first hour, so you got to hear our first segment of Frank Clark was arrested on an illegal possession of a firearm charge.
It's really
and
okay.
That's not good. But as long as this doesn't mean that there's a whole bunch of other stuff that maybe we find, if it's a standalone incident and all of this, it's probably okay. I mean, in the grand scheme,
fine.
In the grand scheme of quote unquote probably okay, it's probably okay. And then we found out over the course of that very next commercial break that it was not the end of it. He was also arrested for illegal possession of a gun charge back in March. According to TMZ, he said that the weapon, at least in the second arrest, belonged to a member of his security team. Previously, it was apparently 2 guns with him and a friend in the car. Maybe both of those belonged to his friend. We'll see how this all plays out. What did you think as you saw part 1 of the story and then as everything unfolded?
Yeah, and I kind of knew part 2 in conjunction a little bit with part 1, so it was all kind of one big piece to me.
Insider Matt Derrick.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you stumble on things, but kudos to Sam McDowell because he tracked it down before I did. So, but yeah, both of these, and just looking at the big picture, obviously doesn't look good. But you're right. Drilling into the circumstances, which we're going to do, it may look a little bit differently. Back in March, there still aren't any charges that have stemmed from that yet. Doesn't appear that there will be necessarily charges that stem from that. So, you're right. I mean, this may be a situation where even the second instance, if no charges stem from either one of these arrests, what is the takeaway from this?
Okay.
Is it just, wrong place, wrong time? wrong situations, yeah, there's probably still some questions to be answered, but I don't think it jumps to the level of the Chiefs need to release Frank Clark. I mean, I don't think that's clearly the talk that anybody would come to if there's no charges that come from it.
Right.
But, you're right. I mean, and in comparing this to some other examples the Chiefs have been through, you know what? Frank Clark will probably not be sideways with the organization as long as he's been truthful about what's happened and as long as he's been forthright and nothing surprises them.
Right. Which does, after one incident, I would think that this could come out and you could say, hey, Clark, Andy, Brett, whatever, here's what happened here. But if that pops up and then you're not especially forthright about something in March, I have no idea if that's been the case. The fact that there were apparently some rumblings about that previously makes me think that it's not been the world's best kept secret. So maybe things are relatively above board internally within the organization and everything. But as a pattern, and also like paying bail to be out of prison and then being arrested for the same thing 3 months later is not a pattern of behavior that I would call ideal to this point. And so I still, even if it ends up being relatively minor, I've last hour ended up talking about just like good judgment at a variety of levels. And it's why I'm relatively willing to be pretty forgiving on number one, and then to start being a whole lot more concerned about pattern of behavior sort of issues.
Yes, I would agree with that. And you're right. I mean, hey, both these situations honestly could end up being chalked up to bad luck and nothing that was necessarily completely within Frank Clark's control. I mean, if this was a situation where he was with other individuals who were legally carrying a weapon, and perhaps the only argument that could be made is that if these were weapons that belonged to another person, that perhaps they were not carrying that weapon in the most responsible manner, that may be of an issue there. That's an issue for those individuals, not necessarily Frank Clark. But if that's the case, yeah, I mean, it's less of a question of necessarily what Frank Clark did, and maybe it's just a little bit more of a question of a lot of NFL players, unfortunately, get into situations that I think that they get into because of maybe the societal issues around.
Sure.
Because let's face it, I mean, it hasn't been made of a big deal, but, Tyrann Mathieu has had some issues within his family, and sometimes that's what happens when you suddenly get wealthy and you've got a lot of money, and and I know if I suddenly became rich and had a lot of money, there's probably some people in my life who would be causing me problems, and so things like that. I mean, I don't know that I can necessarily appreciate the kind of issues that some of these players go through and what they have to face. So to me, unless someone has specifically committed a crime and they are adjudicated for that, I don't know if you can really punish them. I don't necessarily think it makes any sense for the league to punish them. And I'll be honest, I mean, just the sense that I get from talking to people within the organization, I mean, would the Chiefs necessarily think that this is a serious situation? Sure. But do I get the sense that they think that this is the end of Frank Clark or anything of that nature? By no means whatsoever is that in the ballpark of conversations right now.
I mean, you mentioned other sort of data points we have on the Chiefs and the enormous umbrella of off-the-field stuff, right? Let's just go as broad as possible. Kareem Hunt got cut and this is something that, again, I can't know what Clark Hunt thinks, but from every single person who's ever talked about it, it seems like their, I guess, bigger issue might not sound great, but it seems like the thing that ended up costing Kareem Hunt his job, and somebody, I think it may have been Eric Bieniemy, who said, I think it was Kareem cut Kareem was the phrase. It may have been Bieniemy, I'm not sure. Rudy, can you Google that and see if you can find out who said that? I can't remember off the top of my head. That seems to stem, and you can confirm as much of this as you'd like, that seemed to stem from a sort of distrust, poor communication, lying to your employer about what it was that happened and all that stuff. And then you have Tyreek Hill, the sagas that have sort of been around him, which obviously have had a whole bunch of different layers, yada, yada, yada. We all know this now. And they stuck by him, theoretically, in part because he was honest with ownership and with the team altogether,
do you, first of all, is my summary there like reasonable in your understanding?
I would agree with the reasonableness of that summary. Yes, Your Honor.
I'll take that. In fact, Beards, you can just cut that just for me to have is just a sounder that I can play whenever I'm insecure about something. Just Matt saying yes, I think that's reasonable. I don't know what the communication with Frank Clark and the team has been, but that removes it from the severity of the incident itself, which on some level I think is kind of a little bit uncomfortable, but on some level also at least sort of sets a standard that the Chiefs are expecting in terms of the communication. And again, this wasn't an illegal firearm that was used for a robbery or that hurt somebody or whatever. So I do think that going for the absolute nuclear option is unreasonable at this point. I think I'm just agreeing with you now.
And I'm agreeing with you at this point.
Which is agreeing with you again. That makes sense.
And not every situation is comparable because sometimes the names are not comparable.
Yeah.
Back in 2018, the Chiefs had a linebacker, Kasim Green, who was on the 90-man offseason roster, was charged in conjunction with a shooting in New Jersey, and the team released him within 24 hours.
Yeah.
I mean, there wasn't any, this is a guy on the 90-man roster. Now, we'll set aside that apparently the charges were later dropped because there were some questions with the evidence and the way that it was procured by the police.
Yeah.
But, frankly, Kasim Green never got back in the league.
Yeah.
And this wasn't necessarily his fault. He was just, once again, wrong place, wrong time, wrong circumstances, it looks like.
DeAndre Baker got cut off of what we later found out to probably be an extortion scheme against him.
It looked like he might have very well been the victim of that
Yeah.
issue. But once again, it stems back to the situations that sometimes players put themselves into. And even if they are sometimes in the right, if they look like they're in the wrong, sometimes public opinion gets the best of them before everything's adjudicated. And that's why in this case, let everything play out. I mean, at this point, there's no allegations whatsoever this involves violence of any issue whatsoever. If anything, what this issue involves is perhaps the ownership of weapons and whether or not there was clear possession legally of those weapons. And if it turns out the case that there's nothing to this, then I'm not sure why Frank Clark can't just go about things and the Chiefs can go about things and we don't think anything more of this. I mean, we'll see what happens, but at this point, we don't know that much.
It's another issue. We don't know what a catch is. What is clear possession? We have the NFL has this issue. Did you find out the quote there, Rudy?
Yeah, so it was in a behind the scenes story by a young up and coming writer. May or may not have heard of him, Nate Taylor.
Yes, rings a bell.
The quote was,
and I got to talk to you about that impersonation, by the way.
The quote was, Andy didn't cut cream, Beach didn't cut cream, Clark didn't cut cream, cream cut cream. Quoted by Team Source.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was a behind the scenes. So
I thought somebody had their name on that.
So at least in his article, it was a Team Source. Says.
Okay. I heard it in Eric Bieniemy's voice.
No.
That might have.
Yes.
I didn't hear you put that in EB's voice. No, that was not EB itself.
Okay, all right, that's a good. I'm glad that we got that clarified because can't you hear him? It just felt like it was in his tone
that, like it was like
head,
a statement that like the way it was essentially worded like something he would say.
Yeah, just sort of his
his
tempo or whatever.
Your Nate Taylor impersonation sounds vaguely like Chris Tucker from Rush Hour. There you go.
Oh, that hurt.
Yeah,
sorry. You said obviously we don't expect nuclear option here, and there's a bunch of information we don't currently have. As we stand here right now, and I see you texting, I see you looking at your phone every once in a while. I wonder what's on that phone. I really do.
Right now, Chris Tucker, because I forgot his name.
As things stand currently, we've got several different other examples. Also, with like Bashad Breeland, his last offseason incident has not resulted in a suspension
as of yet.
As of right now, that was a full year ago, very close to it at this point. But I don't think we'll wait till the next season.
The plea bargain was in October, and the NFL
it's not quite a year.
Moves at a glacial rate.
Right.
When his suspension for the last time came down with the Chiefs, it was in August. So sometimes July, August is when the NFL finally gets their act together and figures out what they're going to do.
And they would probably rather, generally speaking, suspend guys for the first 4 games of the year than for 4 playoff games or the last 4 games of the year or something, right?
And normally teams know at this time of year, even if the NFL has not made it official yet. Usually at this time of year, teams know if there will be or won't be any punishment.
Mm-hmm.
So with just the information that we have currently, do you have a feel of, with Frank Clark on 2 illegal firearm arrests right now, not even charges, I guess, at this point. Do you have a feel for NFL getting involved, the Chiefs doing anything independently? What would your best information be at this point?
I mean, best information at this point would be I don't think that there's going to be anything that comes of this. And honestly, I wouldn't even be surprised if we don't hear anything from the Chiefs on this until training camp.
Yeah.
I mean, part of it is that this is the NFL's vacation time. The next 5 weeks, everybody's on a beach or on an island or
in a beautiful radio studio.
No, there's no NFL player in a radio studio right now. You can't even get them in a podcast studio. Might be able to get them in a commercial shoot, but they're out riding. They're out riding a horse somewhere on. So yeah. I mean, yeah. I would, like I said, I would be surprised if we don't hear anything from the Chiefs or Frank Clark until training camp.
Yeah. And
as far as, could there be some proactive action? I mean, could the NFL put him on the exempt list, the commissioner's exempt list? Could the team, have an indefinite suspension? They could, but with no allegations of violence.
Yeah. And
nothing happening in the courts. His court date is in October. There's apparently no charges stemming from the March incident because there's not even a court date set for that. Yeah, I mean, the NFL typically in non-violent cases where a player does not have a history involved with violations of the NFL's public, player conduct policies, they usually don't do anything until the courts deal with it. I mean, it would almost there would have to be something with violence. I mean, and look at the situation that Deshaun Watson's in right now. It was a much uglier circumstance than Frank Clark, frankly, and no one's taken any action there yet.
Yeah. And Frank Clark, again, I mentioned that he had the domestic violence incident in college, but typically the NFL
that doesn't
they start treating you as an NFL player when you become an NFL player.
If you
drafted or whatever.
There have been some minor circumstances where players have had incidences from their college careers that if there were some extenuating circumstances that they may have entered the league with a strike, if you will, in the player conduct policy. But no, with Frank Clark's case, as far as the NFL's conduct policy is, as far as we understand, this slate is clean.
As far as we understand, also is a pretty good qualifier because every once in a while the NFL is good for a really spicy, spiked curveball. Where you go, oh, you know what? That's not that is not in any way reflective of what your strategy has been to this point.
I'm just trying to figure out how TMZ didn't get in on the March thing.
It is very weird.
Really falling asleep at the switch out there.
Yeah, because we were saying earlier, maybe before the show, if something like this happens, TMZ's usually got it. They will publish it, and they're
Find
usually
out the facts later.
Right. They will get to their 250 words they need for the SEO, and they'll roll it out there. But to have this one, but not the one from March. Yeah, I don't know. They just fell asleep. Their contacts in the LA County Police Department didn't get in touch early enough, I guess. I don't know. It's just, again, it's the pattern of it being a couple things now. It just makes me sort of second guess. It's probably too much, if I'm being honest, because it just doesn't seem very smart. I think I said this earlier, but it seems like the one incident seems stupid, and the second having it be a multiple time incident seems stupid. And it's just a different totally. And here's the thing: is even if it is a member of his security detail, he just got arrested for this 3 months ago. Like, it would make sense to be just sort of on your tippy toes about not getting arrested for the exact same thing again within 3 months.
But it seems like you might want to mind your Q's and T's and all that kind of stuff. But
just be more careful.
I will say this: from 3 hours ago, first hearing about this incident to now, it seemed and I'm just talking about it from a football perspective.
Sure.
Frankly, it seems much less serious now than it did at first blanch, because now that we're learning a little bit more about it, it looks like there may be a lot of extenuating circumstances here. So it's definitely, as in all cases, it should be, wait until all the facts come out, see what happens. But right now, I mean, do I expect that this is going to have any impact on Frank Clark and the Chiefs on the football side this year? No, I don't think so.
Listen, you can wait till the facts come out all you want. Our radio show starts at 7 p.m. and eventually these microphones turn on. I gotta say something, Matt. I gotta have a hot take.
That's what NBA Oreos are for.
Yes, you want to do that? Can that be your literal palate cleanser? Would you like to unveil the gift that I believe you've brought to us?
And I feel really good and really bad about this at the same time, because I went back to Hy-Vee to get the NBA Dynasty Oreos.
Okay.
because
Oh, yeah.
Beard said,
Yes.
I wouldn't have bought the regular Oreos today if I'd known these existed.
Right.
So next time as a high V,
Beautiful.
I got Beard's
Oh,
a package of the NBA Dynasty Oreos.
you're the best, Matt.
And then I thought, I can't show up with a box of Oreos for Beards and not have a box of Oreos for Josh.
Whoa!
So,
Thank you, Matt.
so Josh gets some Oreos.
Beautiful.
And then I show up and Rudy's here. And Rudy,
I have Oreos. I do have Oreos at home.
I have
so
a
it's all
lovely
right.
high V bag.
Well, I do like to keep a bag in the backseat of my car just in case you throw away some trash. And in my cabinet right now at home, I have.
All I gotta say,
Oreos.
Rudy, is be more complaining on Twitter about not having Oreos, and you get Oreos.
Here's what we can do for this. They're beautiful, and also I will not. All of the Celtics ones are going straight out off the balcony from me. Rudy and I can share these. In fact, these can even be office Oreos because Beards is out on after tomorrow's show. Because Beards is on. He's got the wedding, then honeymoon, vacation, all of that. So you unknowingly just got Beards a wedding gift.
There
really.
you go. Well, exactly. Beards, congratulations.
They're going to be delicious. Thank you.
You got Beards a wedding gift, and you got me and Rudy a snack. That's great.
I bet the 76ers ones are all crumbled.
Do we have a rim shot? That's not really our show typically, but if there's ever an excuse to have one, would you like to eat one of these NBA Oreos, everybody? Would you like to crack these open?
If you're cracking them open, I will never turn down
Yeah,
an Oreo.
I'm not gonna
It's
say
a
no.
miracle I've had these in the house.
Yeah.
And have not eaten one.
If you
so
would
I'm
have brought
pretty
in
proud of myself.
half a pack of NBA Oreos, I would have been.
Well, I would like to, take full responsibility for the full value of these as a gift.
Yes.
But they were 2 for $5.
Incredible.
So-
An incredible value.
$2.50 each, and they are
Pretty good.
limited edition.
Grab one and then tell me which team you end up with. I've
Oh,
shaken
wait,
them
there
all
are
down.
teams on
There are
there?
teams
It's like
on
an
them.
NBA lottery draft.
Oh.
Yes, this is
selection
exactly
here.
it.
This
Like-
is how they're doing the draft lottery tomorrow.
They should be.
Now, so are all 30 teams on these?
I don't know because not all 30 teams necessarily have dynasties per se. Beards, come in here and get
That's
one.
a fair point.
Man, is there an NBA team with a lobster as a logo?
With a lobster? I don't know. I got the Warriors bridge for sure. Turn it up. Turn it over, Matt.
Oh, is that the Bulls?
It's the Bulls. It's the
Oh,
Bulls.
there you go.
Don't look, Beards. Just grab one. Well, don't touch them all.
Just touch one.
So
I definitely saw a Celtics one in the middle. What is it? He got
he
Beards got
cheated.
a Celtics one.
He cheated.
That one's poisoned.
Wait, I thought this was Dynasty.
Right, yeah.
Not poorly run Frank. Did you see that report in the Athletic about the Celtics?
No.
There's some trouble in paradise.
Oh,
Let's just
wow.
say players within the Celtics did not want Brad Stevens to continue being the head coach and are not too happy with the young stars who are coddled.
Wow.
Apparently, Brad Stevens and
interesting.
Kimball Walker have been fighting all year long.
Wow, I didn't see any of that.
Yeah.
And I think it's fitting that Beard's got a Celtics Oreo that is all white in the middle.
Wow.
I got a Warriors
For some
one.
reason,
It's very
the
tasty.
wafer is also white. It's strange. It's just,
The Celtics one are vanilla
yeah,
Oreos,
it's just,
white cream.
That's why he was able to pick it out. I got the Spurs, but there's like
Oreos
a
are
little
really
bit of a
good.
little bit of a crack in there, which does feel right for the Spurs right now.
We can eat on the radio. We're not the first, second, third, fourth, 50th.
It does seem like there's a lot of cream on these. That's not a bad thing.
Oreos are good.
They're not quite double stuffed, but they feel like they might
One
be
and a half stuffed?
1.5 stuffed. Yeah.
Do you know how many calories are in these?
Oh no, I don't.
I don't want to know.
One cookie has 70 calories.
Wow.
This thing is mostly sugar
And fat
And delicious.
and delicious.
and love.
Two-
Sugar. Let me look at the.
Looks like 2 grams
ingredients.
of saturated fat.
It says, boy, it really is 140 calories for 2 cookies, huh? Hold on. Is it only Heat, Lakers, Warriors, Bulls, Celtics, and Spurs? Because those are the only ones on the back there.
Probably.
Yeah, I mean, it does make sense that they wouldn't necessarily have
The Denver Nuggets one.
a Denver Nuggets one. The Suns are starting their dynasty, but I don't. It doesn't hurt my feelings that they're not in the dynasty pack of Oreos.
Yeah.
That is curious.
If it was the up and coming pack of Oreos, then that's where we would expect them. But that's coming out next year.
Man, you would think they would have more than 6. But at the same time, that would be a lot of
It would be a
different
lot.
cookies to make.
It would be a lot. I'm going right now to a list of NBA championships won by a franchise.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if this is the top 6. It would not surprise me, right? Is
Yeah.
anybody clearly left out of there?
Who are they again?
Celtics, Lakers, Bulls, Warriors, Spurs, and then
Celtics.
it's apparently it's Sixers,
Pistons, and then the Heat. Those are some split into AB. There's some ABA teams in there.
Yeah.
So
those are all multiple winners.
It's all the
That's
top. It's the top
three.
5 in the Heat.
That's
basically
3 or more. Well, no, the Heat have 3.
No, I was just counting down the list basically. Because yes, they all have at least 3, but it's clearly Celtics and Lakers by a mile, and then it's the Bulls and Warriors with 6 each. Spurs have 5, and then the Sixers, Pistons, and Heat all have 3. So they just picked one of those.
How many do the Hawks have?
None.
Hold on, let me keep scrolling.
I thought they won some in St. Louis.
They did.
That's fair.
1958.
That's
Do
true.
you even
Put
know
some
basketball,
respect,
Beards?
They only won one? I thought they won a bunch
Give
back
them
in the day.
some respect.
I see St. Louis / Atlanta Hawks, 1958.
There you go.
Do they have the
Never
little tag
forget.
on the back of their jerseys? The Hawks? Are they even still doing that? I just dawned on me they might not be doing that because I only watch the Suns, and the Suns do not have the little tag on the back of their jerseys.
No, that might be because they wear the Valley jerseys all the time now.
No, it's because they haven't won a championship. The little gold tag.
Okay.
I did not know this was a thing.
Oh, this was several years ago.
Yeah, I didn't. I don't know.
Matt's wheeling and dealing over here. Matt's
have
about
no
to.
idea.
We're gonna
But
take
I mean,
a break and
but
we're gonna
like
come back and
I-
find some news out from Matt.
No, I'm just
never
trying to figure out
won,
who's won an NBA championship.
Never won an NBA title, so like I wouldn't know.
Yeah, that's honestly like I
Yeah.
just watched. We watched I've watched Suns Clippers and Suns Nuggets very closely. Not a lot of banners hanging in those rafters.
No.
Not a lot of. Do you remember from several years ago? It's very much a soccer thing. 'Cause, on your soccer jersey,
I
you get the
did not
stars in
know
the
that
front.
little gold that's what that was. I just thought it was
It's
like a design thing.
It's a little gold patch with the
Yeah.
Larry O'Brien trophy, and I think there's a number on
yeah,
it for number of
says
titles.
like 5. It's got a trophy, and then it's like 5x or 4x, 3x,
Yeah.
whatever, however many times you've won. Huh?
I didn't notice that either.
Yeah,
Really?
the 24
Wow.
Bears. You even know the NBA 2014, 2015. Yeah, that's when that started.
I just remember them putting the logo on the
Yeah.
back.
I am not sure that I can name more than one player who is still in the NBA playoffs.
Let's see if we can help you out here. Give me your one.
Is Chris Paul still in the NBA playoffs?
He is. He's
even
out,
though he's on the COVID
out
list.
for game 2 at the COVID list. All right, that's one. All right, go back to my Phoenix Suns. There's at least one other guy you should know from the Suns.
Charles Barkley.
No
Not in the
longer
league anymore.
active.
No.
Little active Suns.
I cannot name another Sun.
Oh, hey, Rudy, I would love to read after the show tonight. What types of devices could you read on that might be made of paper that's bound, and then you open up and you read it?
A
Melvin
magazine.
Booker.
So close.
Very
You're
close.
so Matt. You're so close.
So close.
Oh, Devin Booker.
Yes,
There
it's
you
his
go.
son. Ding,
There you
ding, ding. Do we have a
go.
ding, ding, ding sound?
Is Melvin Booker still out in the league? He should be.
He's
He
not.
was
No, but
fantastic.
he's Devin
well,
Booker's dad, which
well-
I didn't know until deep
How did
into
you
Devin
not
Booker's.
know that?
What? How did you know Devin Booker's a son?
He still trains.
Because Melvin Booker is a Mizzou legend.
Yeah, he
and the fact that
trained.
he didn't go to Mizzou was a giant betrayal.
You know where you went to though?
Yeah, that was a problem.
Went to
Okay,
Kentucky.
because that's where you go if you want to become a good NBA player.
All right, we got you to two.
And if you want to
and
just
get
be
paid.
and if you want to just be a sixth man, you go to Missouri.
Wow.
Shouts to Jordan Clarkson.
Michael Porter would like Jr. would like to have a
That's
few
true.
words
I
with
love
me.
Michael
No
Porter Jr.
Yeah,
too.
yeah. I'm a sixth man, Michael Porter Jr.
I mean, he probably
kidding.
should be a sixth man though. But he'd be a good one. He can't play defense, but what can he
Mizzou's won as
score?
many titles as Kentucky has like last 5 years. So
Yeah, that's probably true. Yeah. Our
0.
last
The number would
one
be 0, I believe. The
was-
number would be zilch.
and we've
was
never
our
had a
last
title taken away from us. So see,
Well, we haven't either,
it's just a matter of time.
Calipari has,
but not at Kentucky.
right? Well, Final Fours.
Final fours.
We haven't had Final Four taken away.
Mizzou's never had a Final Four taken away.
That's true. See,
It's true.
It's true.
It is true.
see, you don't
But
make
neither
money.
has
You got a
Kentucky.
lot fewer problems.
That's
Now,
exactly right.
Here's the thing: when all the FBI scandals going down, you know who wasn't mentioned? Wasn't us.
That that's
We
really
were
makes
clean.
No sense. That makes no sense whatsoever.
We were clean, baby.
What if the Heat Oreo was spicy? It was broken in half.
What you want a little sriracha or ancho pepper in there or something?
I mean, I would eat it still.
I know you would.
All right, so this is a radio show.
Probably be pretty
This is
good.
a professional radio show where Matt Derrick of Chiefs Digest names NBA players. The Clippers are playing the Suns. They had a big name player that was on one of these teams. I was on Rudy's Oreo. And then he went to another team and won a championship up north.
I'm so confused.
And now he's in LA.
Oh,
He's not
I
currently
know.
playing because his ACL's bleeped up.
I know.
Yeah. I was trying to
Beverly.
name NBA players earlier today. And
How loud is this? Is this as loud as it sounds in my head?
Yeah.
Seems pretty
Probably.
loud.
It's a little crunchy.
I started naming, and I think I named Deion Richmond, and I think that was actually the guy who played Bud on the Cosby Show.
Rudy, would you like Oreo?
Yeah, I would. Let's
Which
see
color should you get?
what I get this time.
Matt, would you like another Oreo?
I've already had my 70 calories worth.
Would you like another Oreo, Matt?
I need to stop right there.
Golden State. I was kind of, I'll say the bit now, hoping for a Celtics one because then I was just going to like throw it against the door.
How dare you do that to an Oreo?
But I got a Celtics or
You know what? I
Warriors
guess at least you could pretend that the Bulls one is a deer. You know, you could pretend it's a fear the deer.
Yeah, that's a Milwaukee Bucks slogan.
And I thought it was a crab upside down. So.
They have a Greek player who's very tall with a very long name, who's very good at basketball.
But he's not in the playoffs anymore.
He is.
And
Is
they
he? Oh, yeah, he is. He is. Okay.
And they have Giannis.
Was that a joke about
'Cause they have-
Giannis,
yeah,
his brother?
The
See, I know
Bucks have
Giannis and
the Bucks have 2 Antetokounmpos on their team.
Giannis had a great opportunity because he was on the same 60 Minutes episode as Stormy Daniels' interview. So he got a whole new audience there.
That's very true. So did she.
I'm sorry, what?
I just remember that because on the 60 Minutes episode that Stormy Daniels was on, the first story, I think, or the second story, or whatever, was Giannis. And talking about him going back to Greece. And,
Wow.
And helping out the kids and being a hero and all that cool stuff.
And Stormy Daniels.
But, I mean, there were a lot of eyeballs on that episode. So people who did not know about Giannis now know about him. I didn't know that much
vice
about him.
versa.
Right.
And this was obviously 5 years ago when he wasn't a superstar yet.
Right.
True.
He was just the up and coming guy, and
He
it was like,
wasn't-
oh wow, Giannis, I need to watch out for this kid.
He wasn't the Greek freak. He was just that Greek guy.
Exactly.
Greek dressing.
The only other team still alive right now is the Atlanta Hawks.
Yes, which I could go on for half an hour not naming Atlanta Hawks.
You might get one. I'm gonna
Really?
Is Jamari Carroll still on the Atlanta Hawks?
Okay.
I
don't.
Matt's eyes lit up. He was so
yeah,
excited.
I will say
Because
I
when
almost was like, wait,
I was
is
trying
he?
to name Atlanta Hawks earlier, and I was Dominique Wilkins.
Yeah.
It was
Not,
Spud Webb.
neither
I
of them
think Manute Bol played for them at one
think
point.
he did.
I think so.
Yep.
He played at Oklahoma relatively recently. Young guy, shoots from deep. Not a good head of hair, but he's kept it.
He's trying.
But he healed.
Nope. Nope. Other Oklahoma guy right after Buddy Healed.
Oh, the other Oklahoma guy.
Manute Bol did not play for the Hawks.
Well, it seems
really?
like he
No.
should have. He seems like he should have.
He did now.
Let's count him anyway.
Let's count
He
him.
did now.
He's not old, Matt.
Very young.
And
After
he's
Buddy healed.
he's not Dos or Quattro.
He's best friends with Michael Porter Jr.
He's not Dos or Quattro when
that
he's not
guy.
old.
Yeah, because he also.
They're gonna probably play in the NBA together.
He's not Dos or Quattro when he's not old.
That was also.
Cinco. Ocho Cinco.
That's what I was getting ready to say. Was Ocho Cinco. Quarters. Stephen Quarters. What?
Matt Derrick
I've gone off the rails here at
of
this point.
Chiefs Digest.
Yeah, I am clearly
Yeah.
not NCAA College Basketball Digest or Atlanta Hawks Digest.
HawksDigest.com's Matt Derrick. He wrote the book at last,
Yeah.
which is all about whenever he learned the name Trey Young.
Trey Young, there you go. He was also
Nailed it.
supposedly going to Mizzou, according to Reddit, and did not.
Sorry, did Reddit lie to you?
Every great college basketball player of the last 30 years has been
gonna
offered
go to Mizzou.
a scholarship to Mizzou and has chosen to go elsewhere.
The amount of NBA players that are born in Missouri that did not go to Mizzou, that's a little heartbreaking.
Tyler Hansborough,
Yeah, Jason Tatum,
Jason Tatum.
Otto Porter Jr.
Yep.
There's a pretty big list of Missouri-born guys.
And
in
some
the
guys
NBA
went to
that,
Mizzou and didn't really play that much there.
Yeah.
Yeah. You said that was heartbreaking. Michael Porter Jr. going to Missouri was backbreaking.
It's too
was.
soon, Josh. Too soon.
And heartbreaking, if we're being honest. It hurt both sides.
Let's take a break. Whenever we come back, we'll probably go back to Chiefs or at least Oreo adjacent topics with Matt Derrick of Chiefs Digest next.
Did you know you can listen to Almost Entirely Sports anywhere, anytime? Well, you can. Just search for Almost Entirely Sports wherever you get your podcast. This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
The dog needs to be peeing, Josh. Let the dog be comfortable peeing.
Outside! It needs to pee outside. That's where dog pee goes, Matt.
On Sports Radio 810, WHB.
Beards, you said you had a Twitch comment you wanted to bring whenever you came back. Matt Derrick of Chiefs Digest in studio with us.
I do. Credible Hulk asked who would be the 6 Chiefs on an Oreo in a Chiefs all-time great Oreos.
Ooh. Wow.
Discuss.
I was going to actually say that we needed a Twitch Asks Matt a question.
Jackie Battle.
Ryan Suckup.
Damon Heward.
Jesse Haynes.
Harrison Butker.
Oh, that's too good.
He won a Super Bowl, Beards.
Put the name. That's the premier Oreo.
Did you see Tyler Palko got arrested for
Tyler
a DUI?
Palko.
Oh.
I
Yeah,
would
that's made me
absolutely
sad.
put Tyler
No.
Palko on there.
Oh.
Well, actually, this Oreo is going to be a dual Oreo. I'm going to have Tyler Palko and Jonathan Baldwin because college teammates got to be on there together.
Breland speaks, never on the ground.
You can't have an Oreo without Tyler Thigpen on it.
Dude,
Can I read you guys a
I've
headline?
had this conversation. I still, to this day, if Tyler Thigpen played in today's NFL, he would not be that bad. He was built for today's NFL.
He was built for today's football.
I'm not saying he would be a top 10 quarterback.
No, he
but
would
he's
be a great backup for the 32th 32nd ranked offense in the league.
Can
I
I read
would
you guys
love
a,
to watch Tyler
You guys
Thigpen in
know
this
Matt
offense.
Connor of Arrowhead Addict, right? Is
Yes.
A good
Yeah.
good dude. Hashtag good dude team.
Sure. Yep.
Mhm.
Confirmed.
He wrote this headline. Tyler Palko reminds us all of his questionable decision making.
Oh,
Now, is this
Tyler.
like a
Tyler
from
didn't
performances on the field or
Tyler didn't
decisions
have
off the field?
questionable decision making. He had questionable ball skills.
His decision making is just flat out bad.
Uh,
Oh, hey, Josh, Kawhi Leonard has officially been ruled out.
That was, yeah.
I said that a
Steve
while
Martin's
ago.
a prop comic.
Yeah, well, you did say that earlier, but then Josh was like, well, we think he is. Now he's been officially ruled out.
I need to go back to
I
that
don't think I said
Oreo
that.
thing.
You did.
Len
Okay.
Dawson's going on the Oreos. I mean, you gotta put Lenny on there.
Mahomes gets an Oreo. He's just there. He was a quarterback for Super Bowl winning
I'm
quarterback gets an
Mahomes.
Oreo.
Mahomes is on.
Hey,
Mahomes is on.
I
an
will.
Oreo.
My hot take. I need a little more before I can put him on the Oreo.
Mahomes is on.
You need more than an MVP and a Super
Matt,
Bowl MVP?
He's
need
been
a
on
little
2
more.
covers of Madden.
He's been on
an
2
O-
covers of
he-
Madden.
He's
need a little
he's
more.
on an Oreo.
I need a little more.
If Oreo released all-time NFL grade edition, they would put Patrick Mahomes on one of the Oreos.
Would you put Tony Gonzalez and or
Absolutely.
Patrick
Yeah.
or Travis Kelce on the Oreos?
Here's
fine
the
with
thing.
both of 'em.
You're gonna get my recency bias because I'm gonna say yes, but now we've got 2 quarterbacks, 2 tight ends, and we're at 4 out of 6. I want to put Jamal Charles on one, but we have no defensive players.
Well, Derrick Thomas
is definitely on one.
Yeah, Derrick Thomas, Patrick Mahomes,
And Eddie
locks.
Kinnison.
I'm good with that.
Dwayne Bowe.
Oh.
Dwayne Bowe Rios.
Can it say like?
I'm going-
Can it say
you know
like
what?
2014 Dwayne Bowe or whatever year that was?
He wasn't drafted by
Just
2014.
because
Was he?
everybody else
No, the year he had the
loving the offense.
breakout year.
I'm going to do an all. I would do all defensive Oreos.
Wow. Okay, give them to me.
Bobby Bell.
Okay.
Willie Lanier.
Good.
Derrick Thomas.
Yep. I'm wondering who the most modern one's going to be. I'm curious.
2010.
Emmett
Dwayne
Thomas.
Bowe. Breland Speaks.
He's a Hall of Famer. He's a Hall of Famer.
Tano Passanio.
Not a Chiefs Hall of Famer. Emmett's a NFL Hall of Famer. For crying out loud.
Yep, that's 4.
And I'm forgetting some old guys, man. Because there was only like half of that Super Bowl IV champion defense went into the Hall of Fame.
Eric Berry
Johnny,
doesn't quite get an Oreo,
the safety,
right?
The safety,
Yeah.
Johnny.
Johnny
DJ
Robinson,
Morton.
Hall of Famer.
Yeah, there you go.
DJ.
But now we've got one. We got one room for a modern defender.
I'll be honest. The only people going on my Oreos are NFL Hall of Famers. If you don't have a gold jacket, and these Oreos are gold. They're going to have the gold cream.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Are we doing the inside out Oreos or are we going vanilla with the white? They're all delicious. Oreo doesn't make a bad.
I think I would go golden Oreo with chocolate cream.
By the way, Oreo, I was going to say Oreo doesn't make a bad cookie. That's not true.
I just put a Lakers one out. This is a bad cookie.
They also, I believe,
I'm gonna eat it, but I'm gonna frown while doing it.
They had like a fruit.
Well, just remember, you're chewing up the Laker dynasty.
Yeah.
It's gonna cease to exist, Beards.
Beard, just imagine that's Anthony Davis's groin.
Wow, that got grim in a hurry.
Grim, seductive. Who's to say? Did you pick a 6th one then? You're going to only Hall of Famers, you said.
See, I feel like I'm overlooking somebody great from the old days.
I'm going.
Well, see, because the Super Bowl team didn't they have like 6 Hall of Famers on it or
Dwayne
something?
Bowe Rios.
Oh, Buck Buchanan, baby.
Yeah,
he
Buck
belongs in an
Buchanan.
Oreo.
Mark Boreorioter.
Ooh. Bogner has the Chiefs record for longest touchdown.
And his name kind of has the word Oreo in the middle of it.
That man deserves to be on
Patrick
an Oreo.
Morio Holmes. Sorry, Matt, he's got to be there.
Yeah, he's there.
I'm really liking my defensive Oreos here. My defensive Oreos could take your lunch money.
Chris Jorios.
No, it's too much of a stretch.
No, because then you're going to want Derrick Gorio to make the team this year.
That's true. I really am. Oh, dude, Frank Gorios should be on every shelf in America.
Frank Gore
celebrating the long-lasting running back. You can drop
The
a Frank
only-
Gorio into milk and it'll stay in a full shape for 6 months. It will never dissolve.
Only 2 running backs have ever mattered: Jamal Charles, Frank Gore. Very different reasons.
I just wish I had a lifetime supply of Frank Gorios. Not that I can talk.
Now, is that that also kind of sounds like a cereal?
Ooh,
that he may have
No,
made
there's
at
no
some
reason,
point.
There's
in
no
his
reason you
life.
can't dunk those things in some milk in the morning.
I don't like milk.
Mark, I've gotten to the point where I've pulled up a depth chart.
Oh no, this is usually when
Tacorio Charlton.
Oh no, no, you cannot make Taco Charlton into an Oreo.
Joshua Kane Dorio.
That's pretty good.
That was pretty good. DiCaprio Oreo Boodle.
Oh no. This is why I don't come in studio.
No, it's probably for the best.
Because the second half hour just falls apart.
Yeah.
Every single time.
Yeah.
Oh, he's got 3 out of the 4. Dan Sorioensen.
He really would be a good Oreo.
Vanilla wafers, vanilla filling.
Well, I was gonna say he's just the one white guy.
Just
out
Andy
there, just in the middle
Andy
of,
Oreo Rito is just sitting out there and
Listen, Matt, it's a stretch. I'm all about the ones that come naturally. Laurent Duvernay Tardif Oreo.
I'm gonna give you a name.
the ones that come naturally, he says.
I'm gonna give you a name and see if you can do anything with it.
Okay.
Christian McCoy.
Ooh, that one's actually kind of difficult. You got to go on the front end. So it's Christian
Yeah.
Oreo Core.
Nailed it.
Nailed it.
First try.
What would you do with Steve Bono?
Steve Bone.
Bonorio.
Yeah, Bonorio.
Steve Bonorio.
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 Did I already say McColrio Hardman?
You had not.
Oh, no.
Nobody wants a hard Oreo.
Jody Forriortson.
Yeah, this show's a great idea on paper.
I don't know if that's true.
What if we leave the Oreo realm and then just go to all sorts of food? You could have Marius French fry.
Oreotus Taylor.
Oreotus Taylor is excellent, Beards. Oreotus Taylor is excellent.
Yeah.
That's the benefit of being old school, too.
Wow, good work.
Yeah. I'm putting them on an Oreo.
Matt, did you have any... Do we need to take a break first before we go to mini camps?
That would probably be an okay idea.
We should probably do that. And whenever we come back, I wanted to ask Matt Derrick. Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com, on Twitter at Matt Derrick. You can follow him there. Whenever we come back, I'm going to see if Matt has any mini camp Oreo observations.
Take the show with you wherever you go. Listen live on the Sports Radio 810 mobile app and 810WHB.com. You're listening to Almost Entirely Sports.
Byron Pringle was born before you were.
Yeah.
And Byron Pringle was born when I was a junior in college. I just realized I could be your father. I mean, my social life would have had to have gone much, much better.
With Joshua Brisco.
Dad?
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
What's your middle name, Matt?
Shane.
We've been over this. I'm sorry for
Reverend
asking you
Shane.
again.
For anyone out there who's wanting to steal my identity, you are halfway there.
I just was going to introduce Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com. You can follow him on Twitter at Matt Derrick. Joining us for one more segment here in tonight's Almost Entirely Sports. And it was frustrating that you didn't have an O anywhere in your name, so I'll just say that it's Matt Derrick joining us here on Almost Entirely Sport.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do.
Confess your sins to Reverend Shane.
Yeah, the Reverend Matt Derrick. Is Matt still in your phone as Reverend?
Yes.
Reverend. Did you tell the? Hold on.
Yeah,
Time
you
out.
told that story on air.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm making sure that whatever your secret identity name was that I have forgot. What was your secret identity name that we talked about? We talked about this on the air. You said, right?
I have several. I mean,
what is he in your phone as, Beards?
Reverend Matt Derrick.
That's
okay.
what people in Liberty know me as. So if you're in Liberty and you hear about the Reverend, that's me.
In any circumstance.
Not any circumstance. I mean,
Any circumstances whatsoever,
you know,
good or bad.
it's a lot of circumstances. Shane Matthews is my.
That's right. Still
Shane
no
Matthews.
O's in there anywhere.
No, that's my nom de plume. That's
That was right.
That's my fictitious name. That's my burner account for life.
God, if I saw Reverend Shane Matthews pop up in my replies
I would-
anywhere, I would be tickled.
You know who to go after.
Be so good. I was gonna ask if you had any Chiefs minicamp observations. I remember
Wow, that was
Ori
butchered.
observations or
I think it was Oreo observations the first time. You pick which one you want to use. And let me
drunk
know.
on Oreos. But one of the things that I thought was interesting was going to be seeing a little more of Chris Jones and Frank Clark opposite each
Yeah,
other.
Might really need Chris Jones now.
Yeah, and that's not ideal. But of sort of the storylines we heard from a ton of people over the course of the press conferences and everything, did anything stick out to you as being something that you'll remember in August or even September?
Actually, one thing stuck out to me from your earlier segment when you were talking about and doing your spot on impersonation of Nate, by the way.
Hurts
you were
so
talking
much.
It also turns into a Pokemon.
When you're talking about the play where Frank Clark and Chris Jones were both demolishing Patrick Mahomes. The
Yes.
funny thing is that Nate and I were standing in our boxes watching that.
Oh,
at
you still have your
practice.
little painted little square.
Painted
Excellent.
little squares, and we're standing out there and watching the play, and Nate just goes, "Oh, Frank Clark just destroyed Patrick Mahomes," and I'm like, "Forget about that. Did you see Chris Jones just destroy?" I mean, if that had been a live play, yes, Patrick Mahomes would now be drinking from a straw. I mean, yeah, they both beat their men rather soundly there. Which, it's June. It doesn't count.
Is it good for the defensive ends or bad for the tackles? Minicamp.
A little of both, but really good for the defensive ends.
Chiefs offensive line's a problem this year. Patrick Mahomes gonna be running around.
How much do you buy the Chris Jones and end thing? Not only just it happening, because it seems very clear that it's happening, but are you buying that it's going to work with an offseason to be ready for it?
Yeah, I'm buying it. I mean, let's face it. I mean, if you really look at it, I mean, it's not anything new. The only thing that's really new about it is how often it may happen. Because, you go back to the old 3-4 days. I mean, Chris Jones essentially played D end a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And don't take this the wrong way. I mean, Chris Jones is probably going to be doing a little bit more D end stuff, but I mean, I don't think you're going to see him lining up like 9 tech. I mean, I don't think you're going to be seeing him doing a lot of the wide stuff that maybe like a Justin Houston might do, and maybe not even stuff that Frank Clark does. But I think you are going to see him doing a lot more of that. And yeah, if I'm a team and I can find a way to exploit that and force Chris Jones into some pass coverage, yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah, that'll be. He mentioned like learning to drop back in coverage and everything, and I did hold my breath for a second thinking about that.
As of things that came across during the Zooms, the eagerness with which Chris Jones has for playing defensive end, I think is pretty interesting, because if Chris Jones is motivated, happy, and eager, I'm interested to see what that looks like.
Yeah, me too. And I mean, it's a good point to mention that you're probably not going to see him doing wide 9 stuff or even like you said, like what Frank Clark does, but he's probably going to end up being in a role more vacated by Alex Okaforio or those other guys that were kind of playing that more of that role. Would you say? Here's the devastating part. Here's the devastating part, Matt, is that what I just said was factually correct and an Oreo pun.
It was.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, what do you think the odds are that Bashad Breeland signs with the Chiefs? Low?
See? when do I ever lead you astray?
You were right. I mean, you were right. I didn't want you to be right, but you were obviously correct.
Shall we just go down the list? Nick Bolton, Chief.
Yeah, no kidding. I laughed at you.
Rashad Breeland, not a Chief.
Not a Chief.
Not a Chief.
I guaranteed both these things as much as I possibly could.
He did.
And did you listen to me?
Nope.
No.
Can you guarantee something that I could bet on?
Bet all the money in the world on the champions from the East. Even though I can't name a single player.
On the East, except for the Greek Freak.
Except for the Greek Freak.
Just say the Suns. It'll make them happy.
No, the Suns have no chance. I mean, they'll probably beat the Clippers because the Clippers are the Clippers.
I mean, that sounds like an NBA expert to me. That's what everybody's saying.
I'm going to sadly eat some Oreos until this segment ends, and I'm going to try to pull myself back together for the next hour. No promises.
Don't worry. Suns got this. Suns got a title,
not a
baby.
chance. No, I'm sorry, Josh. I'm just trying to get you toughened up for the future.
Devin Booker just cementing that legacy.
Yeah, if he'd
It all
gone to
starts today.
legacy?
If he'd gone to
Cementing
Mizzou,
that legacy.
I would guarantee they're winning it.
All
What
starts
is
today.
Devin Booker doing to that legacy, Rudy?
Cementing it.
You've got you can put that enunciation on a different part of that word. Cementing. Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com. Thank you for being here. Thanks for the Oreo. Sorry for wasting your time.
You are listening to Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
guard position.
Definitely, to me, a top 5 point guard, top 7, 6 point guard of all time. And then what he's doing, not turning the ball over, too. Wow. Getting all those assists, not turning the ball over. But let him get done first. I think right now we're too early to judge guys. He's still got a lot of basketball to play.
Hall of Famer Magic Johnson today with Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin. Stanley Cup playoffs tonight, Game 5 between the Islanders and Lightning in Tampa Bay. Lightning 3 goals in the first, 3 more goals in the second, now up 6-0 at the second intermission. Baseball, Braves and Mets with a doubleheader at Citi Field. Mets win Game 1, 4-2. Jacob deGrom, 5 innings of one-hit shutout baseball. He walked 2 and struck out 6 and earning the win. Game number 2, Braves in the 6 up 1-0. Dodgers and Padres about to get underway at Petco Park. Series opener of that series on ESPN TV. Dodgers have won 10 of 12.
Coming up Tuesday, the Clippers got clipped by Devin Booker and the Suns in Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals. I'll tell you whether or not they have enough firepower left in the tank to win the series. Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin on ESPN Radio.
This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
Okay, if the Royals don't win 75 games this year, I'll get slapped in the face with a stick.
But I'll get slapped.
From Hereford House.
Listen, hey, you know what? Are they playing 162 this year? Is that the goal?
I think that's the plan.
If the Royals don't win 161 games this year, I will go to a Hereford House and let them slap me in the open mouth with a medium rare steak, slowly, one piece at a time.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Today's show is predominantly going to be about the Royals, their recent, games.
Royalness.
And then it was going to be predominantly about what happened with Aldaberto Mondesi going back to the IL. And then Frank Clark got arrested, and then we found out that Frank Clark had been arrested for the same thing like 3 months earlier. So we've had a lot of moving pieces over the course of tonight's show. And thanks again to Matt Derrick of Chiefs Digest for joining us last hour. But we're finally going to pay off our Aldaberto Mondesi debts by talking to Max Rieper of Royals Review. You can follow him on Twitter at Max Rieper. You can follow him on Twitter at Royals Review. You can go to royalsreview.com. Max, it's really, really frustrating because every time Aldaberto Mondesi is on the field, I am filled with joy. And then every time he exits a game, I'm immediately filled with dread. And then that on-the-field feeling is usually about 2 weeks away every single time.
Yeah, I know. It seems like it'd almost be better if he wasn't playing so well. Like, he wouldn't be teasing us with his great abilities, like just smashing 460-foot home runs into the restaurant in right field. And, if he was just like playing like a bum, we'd be like, oh, well, he's hurt. Like, we're not really missing out on much. But, yeah, this is incredibly frustrating. And, look, no one's more frustrated than Aldaberto Mondesi. I mean, I've seen some kind of frustrated takes by some fans that, he doesn't want to be out there. Stuff, obviously, he wants to be out there. He wants to be helping his team win games. I'm sure no one's more frustrated about than he is. And look, just, in terms of his career, like, he is costing himself a lot of money by not being out in the field. He's 2 years away from free agency. And, usually you only get one, maybe you're lucky if you get 2 bites at a big free agent deal. And, he's coming into what should be the prime of his career. And we're seeing, like, it seems like he's kind of figuring out Major League pitching, where in these short stints, at least, he looks like an amazing player, but he just can't keep it together and stay on the field. And, these soft tissue injuries, I think it's really frustrating as fans, because, like, if he got hit in the wrist with a pitch, you'd be like, okay, well, that happens. It's a bad break. It happens, and we'll miss him. But that's part of the game. But these soft tissue injuries, where it's like, on the eve of baseball, the opening day, and he, tweaks his oblique swinging a bat. You're like, well, guys swing the bat all the time. Why is he getting hurt from that? Or, the frustrating way they kind of, well, he's making progress. He can come back maybe today or maybe tomorrow, and yet we see him out day after day after day. I mean, that's been part of the frustration. But it's been a frustrating situation all around. He's frustrated. I'm sure the team is super frustrating because they've been counting on him to kind of be the guy that is really the missing piece between, being an okay team to being a team that could seriously contend, because they need someone with some sort of all-star high-level MVP potential. They may kind of had that with Salvi this year, but they really need a guy like Mondesi to step it up and be that player. We just haven't seen it. And so, I don't know what more to say than we're all just really frustrated, and I don't know when we can expect Aldaberto Mondesi to ever be healthy.
This is absolutely a leading question, and so if you simply go, no, that's fair. I don't want to lead you to a yes just because it's what I would rather hear. But in 2018, he played 75 games. In 2019, he played 102. In last year's shortened season, he played 59 of 60. And then this year's obviously been a disaster. Is there a chance that this year is the extreme outlier, or are you thinking that this is just, it's all a part of the Mondesi story to this point?
Yeah, I mean, some of that. Look, he's been extraordinarily unlucky with injuries this year, and that happens sometimes. Sometimes there are years that they're kind of lost seasons, and that really stinks for guys. And we forget Lorenzo Cain early in his career was a guy that just seemed to suffer injury after injury. Just, weird kind of fluke, again, soft tissue injuries a lot of times, like a groin injury that kept him out most of 1 year, stuff like that. And he kind of had to re-engineer how he ran because he figured, he wanted to stay on the field more. Maybe Aldaberto Mondesi ultimately has to do something like that. But look, he's been a guy that's been plagued even through his minor league career with injuries, shoulder injuries, oblique injuries, hamstring injuries. And so I don't know, I don't know if some guys are just more prone to injuries, and maybe he's one of those guys. I do know Sam Mellinger has written a couple of times recently that there is some talk in the organization that perhaps he's a guy that doesn't know how to distinguish between being hurt and being sore. But ultimately, only Aldaberto really knows that. And then, look, I'm sure he's trying as hard as he can to stay on the field. But yeah, I don't know. Some guys just have a lot of injuries in their career, and I don't know if there's really any rhyme or reason to it, or if there's any explanation. But yeah, it's extremely frustrating. And if there was a solution out there, there's a team that can figure out analytics to work for injuries and keep guys on the field. I mean, they're going to make a lot of money because it's been the one problem in baseball that no team has seemed to be able to figure out. And if a team could keep Mondesi on the field more, they'd really be unlocking, I think, a great potential.
Well, and so that kind of, for me, we were talking about him a little bit earlier in the show, and I said if I heard tomorrow that Aldaberto Mondesi was going to get traded, and it was for, whatever you would get for him at his lowest value, I don't even know what you think that would be, but whatever you think they would get for him in a trade right now, I would rather be the team that's getting Mondesi. We this offseason, for the year, we were talking about Andrew Benintendi and going, well, if he's just the guy that he was X, Y, or Z ago, this past version of himself, if he resurfaces now, then the Royals might actually have themselves a nice little left fielder that can do some good things. And he obviously did do some good things. Also has dealt with an injury this year and all of that. But we will talk ourselves into Andrew Benintendi, who does not have Aldaberto Mondesi's ceiling. And I wonder if we're all too close now, kind of to your point earlier, of he's looked so good that the frustrations get only magnified on top of magnifications because of we see the incredible shiny thing and it's just out there so very little. But if he was going to be moved right now, does that make sense to you? Do you co-sign on that, or do you feel similarly, or are you leaning towards, I don't know what the Royals can do here?
No, absolutely. I think the Andrew Benintendi parallel is a good one. And that's what my response has been to people that have said, well, they need to trade Mondesi and just move on. It's like, well, yeah, his value is kind of its low point right now, and maybe it'll be lower a year from now if he's still hurt. But this is like as low as his value. You're kind of selling pennies on the dollar, which is what the Red Sox did last year when Benintendi was hurt and missed most of last year. And look what they got for him. Four minor leaguers who I guess I kind of like, but certainly aren't guys that were top prospects for any organization. And look, Benintendi's a guy that actually has had a couple of really good seasons, whereas Mondesi still really hasn't put that together. So you're probably not even getting that much for Mondesi. But look, I get it from fans. Like, when you have a situation that is frustrating and keeps reoccurring, you want something to change. You want some action to either move on from this situation or fix it. And there's no real fix to this, right? Other than just like letting him heal and hoping he gets healthy and is fine for the rest of the season. So fans want something else to happen. They want him to be traded. Some people have called him to be released, which is ridiculous. But, I understand fans want something to change. They want to move on. But I agree with you. I think really the only thing the Royals can do at this point is just kind of hold on to him and hope that he's healthy. But I do think they can start planning for a future where you're not going to get Aldaberto Mondesi for 100 games.
Yeah.
You may not game for 80. Like, you kind of have to plan for a future where you have to have a different shortstop out there. And if you get Aldaberto Mondesi out there for 50, 80, 100 games, that's great. But you need to have someone else to kind of hedge your bets, and I think they have that right now with Nicky Lopez. I think he's filled in pretty well. I think he's having a pretty good season. He's not going to, put up the numbers Mondesi does or be that dynamic, but I think he's a guy that if he does what he's doing, get on base, put the ball in play good defense, be a pretty good base runner, I think that has a lot of value for the team, and he can be a nice stopgap, kind of Aldaberto Mondesi's caddy right out there until Mondesi is ready to go. And, the Royals kind of did this with George Brett back in the late 70s and early 80s. Like, he had a lot of injuries, not quite as many as Mondesi, but he was out a lot, and they had Greg Pryor, who they acquired to kind of be the fill-in for Brett when he was, inevitably injured. And, Pryor wasn't anything great, but he could fill in and play third base a little bit, hit a little bit. And I think it's all Nicky Lopez has to do to kind of fill in. But I think we're at a point now where we can't say, okay, Mondesi is going to carry this team next year because the injury past is just, so spotty that you can't really count on him for any significant amount of time.
I think that's a really good distinction to make in terms of the difference between saying this guy brings no value, because I think he was something like it was like fifth in an adjusted WAR or something in 10 games on the Royals, something ridiculous like that. I may have my metrics slightly off, but I think the differentiation between this guy does not bring any value because he's not on the field often enough, I think that is an too extreme overreaction. But I also think you're right that it would be silly at this point to say in 2022 we think Aldaberto Mondesi is going to play 150 games at shortstop, because then you're betting on something that you've not seen at any point in his career. So do you think that, we're going to see Bobby Witt Jr. at some point. It's not going to be tomorrow, but it might not be too much longer down the road. What kind of platoon do you see? Is there a world in which Mondesi's playing shortstop and Witt's playing third, and you have Nicky Lopez at second, and you have an incredible defensive infield, and then maybe those guys get shuffled whenever Mondesi inevitably gets hurt? Or is it just take him when you can get him? How do you envision that future probably going? Also a great poll on Greg Pryor. I think the first time his name has been mentioned on this radio show.
Yeah, I try to get Greg Pryor's name in there whenever I can. I don't know. Bobby Witt, J.J. Piccolo has said he's a left side infield guy, which I had always interpreted as third base, because I thought they had kind of penciled in their mind that Mondesi would be the shortstop for at least the next 2 seasons, and perhaps beyond that, because there was some talk they were negotiating a long-term deal with him, which that's probably in jeopardy at this point. But I thought their plan was to have Mondesi and Witt on the left side of that infield. That would be a sensational defensive infield on that side. It would also be a pretty terrific offensive infield as well, and that's how they would kind of go from there. Now that Mondesi's been hurt so much, I'm sure that puts it, quite a bit in doubt. So I think they like the positional versatility they have. I think they like that they have Nicky Lopez who can fill in at second and short, and I think they like the fact that Bobby Witt could play third or shortstop or even the outfield if they asked him to. So I wouldn't be surprised if they asked Bobby DeWitt to move around a little bit when he first comes up. You may see him come in at shortstop if Mondesi's out. You may see him come at third base if Mondesi's able to play. I get the sense they're not super enamored with Hunter Dozier's defense at third base, which is why I think we've seen him so much in right field, why Kelvin Gutierrez is getting such a long look at third. So, if you can upgrade at third with Bobby Witt, that works too. So I think they have a lot of options, but I still think Witt ultimately ends up at third, with them hoping they get, as much as they can out of Mondesi at short. Now, some fans have suggested, and I think the team has kind of hinted at this as well, that maybe Mondesi moves to the center field in an effort to keep him on the field more. Although, center field, you're talking about, making long runs. Yeah. You got walls out there to crash into. You've got other players to crash into. I don't know if that's necessarily a way to keep him on the field more, but that is, that's also an option as well. But, like I said, Mondesi is not a guy you're counting on for 150 games anyway. So, I think you'll take what you can get. If you can get a couple games with him and Witt on the left side of the infield, that'd be a pretty dynamic infield right there.
I know that I'm absolutely repeating myself, and I'm trying. I would love for you to answer a question that neither the Royals, nor Mondesi, nor myself, nor anyone can answer. But it's so frustrating that it feels like the Witt and Mondesi infield is right there, and it would be so much fun. Like, find me a better left side of the infield in baseball. Rudy mentioned earlier the possibility of bringing Nick Pratto up and putting him at first and having an entirely excellent infield defensively and also just an excellent infield period. And it feels like it fundamentally changes without Mondesi in the picture, because now, for as much as you can, as much credit as you can give to Nicky Lopez, it's fundamentally different, and it makes me so sad.
Yeah, it's tantalizing, right?
Yes.
And look, to make a serious run, you need a little bit of luck too.
Sure.
And that means keeping guys healthy. Like when the Royals went on the run in 14 to 15, Lorenzo Cain was a guy that could stay healthy finally. We forget Salvador Perez had some injuries early in his career. He missed most of a season because of a knee injury. But when it came time for the Royals to kind of go on the run, they had a lot of those guys healthy and were able to be on the field every day. So it takes you kind of need the stars to align sometimes in baseball. And for the Royals, maybe that means Mondesi finally, this is the last we'll hear of Mondesi and injured list. And then 2 years from now, when Bobby Witt and Aldaberto Mondesi are making great plays and the Royals are in serious contention, we'll kind of laugh. Oh yeah, remember when Aldaberto Mondesi was hurt all the time?
Yeah.
We were so frustrated back then. But these things can change. Kyle Zimmerman, remember, he was a guy that it never seemed like he was going to be on the field, and he's been relatively healthy the last year and a half. So these things can change. But man, like I said, if we had some sort of solution or elixir or some sort of process where you could just keep guys healthier, I mean, some team would really make out well, because it's been a problem throughout baseball, guys. Teams losing significant players left and right, and for the Royals, they would really like to get Mondesi back in the field just because of all the things he can do. I mean, we saw last weekend for a couple of games, and it's just frustrating to not see him on the field doing that on everyday basis.
So obviously, I mean, the real long term is sort of the focus here now, but this year also it feels different with that Mondesi, and it feels different. Maybe this is just me being late to the party, but this IL stint also feels kind of different, because it's just like, I don't know, it's fool me 3 times. Shame on me for having hope that this is going to get better. But with the Royals, with the losing streak they had, even with a good series against the Red Sox and all of that, does it feel to you like we're kind of entering? I don't know, not necessarily fire sale mode, because I'm not sure that's even really in Dayton Moore's DNA, but like this season, are you willing to say that this season's pretty much a wrap here, even not quite to the halfway point, or do you think that there's room for them to get back into contention? They're 6 games back of 500 right now.
Well, contention, I don't really see them getting back into contention this year, but as far as being, having a fire sale, I don't see that either. I think Dayton Moore sees a lot of value in winning. I think he's made that pretty clear. And I think he wants to see them improve in the standings, whether that means, just getting to 500. I think they'll do what it takes to get to 500. I wouldn't be surprised if they're, buyers at the deadline, maybe not for a rental, but for like a guy that's going to be here for the next year or two.
Yeah.
We've seen him do that in the past. I think back in, maybe this is a bad comparison to make, but remember it was a mid-season trade they made to get Yuniesky Betancourt from the Mariners the first time. That was when they were way back in the standings, but they saw him at the time as a guy that can kind of be their long-term solution at shortstop. And I think that kind of reflected their thinking at the time, which is, I think, similar to their thinking now, that we want to plan for the future, and we're going to get guys, maybe like Andrew Benintendi. Well, maybe that's a better example to use. But, we want to get a guy like that who is available and is, under club control for the next year or 2 years, and kind of be part of this nucleus we're trying to build. And they don't have a long-term solution at center field. They could probably use another reliever. So it wouldn't surprise me at all to see them try to add a player like that. That being said, I think they'll listen to offers. If Mike Minor continues to be on the role he's on, he is under contract for next year. So I think the Royals would probably like to keep him. But if a team comes around with a pretty good offer for a player that maybe is close to major league ready, that they think can fill a need, I think they'd probably listen to that. If a team wants to come in talking about, I don't know if Greg Holland has that much trade value right now, but it's, maybe Scott Barlow could be a guy. I don't think they'd want to trade him, but if some team wants to overpay and give them a lot of good prospects or guys that are close to major league ready again, I think they'd probably listen to that as well. So, we'll see what they do. I think the MO, their MO tends to be, we want to win now. We'll always listen to offers that are out there, but we're really interested in winning and building a winning attitude here, not kind of giving up and tanking the season. So I don't expect to see any kind of fire sale where they're just trading guys. And look, they don't have that many rental assets. Jorge Soler certainly doesn't have much value right now. He's an impending free agent. It's not like they're going to get a whole lot for him anyway. Greg Holland hasn't really had that great of a season. I can't imagine they would get that much for him. So, there aren't any obvious candidates out there I think they would trade.
You mentioned center field, and I kind of perked up when you mentioned the idea of Mondesi going out there, because I don't know that it makes a ton of sense for the logic that you were saying people had thrown out there, but it is sort of an intriguing idea just because of his physical tools. But mentioning center field, I think Lesky had written about this recently as well, that the Royals don't really have, and all the places that they do have some sort of up-and-comers and prospects you'd like to pencil in. They won't all pan out, but you'd like to pencil them in. There's not really an obvious long-term solution or even really hope at center field. So is there anybody in particular that you think makes sense in terms of maybe it's trying to find something at the deadline, maybe it's a longer term project, or what you think about that position? Because it does seem like it's one of the most important positions that the Royals don't necessarily have anything lined up for right now.
Which is really surprising, considering how much importance they put on that position in the past. I mean, they, from what I understand, they had coveted Lorenzo Cain for a couple of years before they acquired him from the Brewers. And we know that they like to look for speedy, center field types in the draft a lot. Obviously they put a heavy premium on defense up the middle, especially in Kauffman Stadium, where we have a wide open space in the outfield. So it is a little surprising they don't really have a kind of heir apparent out there.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't really thought too much about what the long-term solution might be. I know Alec Lewis of The Athletic had a mailbag where he was asked, what does next year's lineup look like? And he kind of tossed out an interesting name in Ramon Laureano of the Oakland Athletics, who's having a pretty terrific season. Kind of I don't know, a 5-tool guy, but he's, a guy that can definitely play defense, has pretty good pop, can hit a little bit. So, and then he didn't really explain it beyond, other than somehow the Royals get Laureano. So it would obviously take a pretty good trade to get him. We'd have to give up probably a couple of young arms, a couple of our better pitching prospects, but you also have, some pretty good depth there. And like Dayton Morris said before, pitching is the currency of baseball.
Yeah. We
have seen him, cash out some of that currency before when they made the James Shields trade. So it may be time for him to make that kind of gamble again. And without a future center fielder in the organization, I think it wouldn't surprise me at all to see them go outside the organization to make that kind of move. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think that I definitely see them making that kind of trade, especially the way the Benintendi trade has worked out so well for them. If they can get another younger player like that with a couple of years left before free agency, I think that make a lot of sense.
You mentioned the pitching is the currency of baseball, and the Royals this season have gone from looking like they had an embarrassment of riches, like they were Scrooge McDuck in a vault through baseball's currency, to having some really disappointing stretches for some of their young guys. Obviously, Kowar and Lynch making their debuts, and then even guys like Singer and Bubic and Brad Keller all having their stretches of disappointing, not really figuring things out. It's stuck in my head now for, I think, it's been more than a week at this point, of Brad Keller saying that he was talking to Cal Eldred about, felt like he was pitching better, but he didn't know what else they could do, and that Cal didn't have any answers either. And stuff like that is just sort of stuck in my head. Disagreements about, and Singer had talked about it, and it not being on the same page with Matheny about sliders and what. It's the whole thing has been just sort of a series of little messes around the pitching staff. Or if it was any one of those guys having the starts to their careers at the MLB level, or just the stretches they did, it probably wouldn't look like much. But it does sort of feel like there's been a bit of a pattern this season, specifically with the younger arms, and certainly in the absence of Danny Duffy and all of that. So do you think that pattern is something to be concerned about at this point? And has anything changed for you over the last month or so with the issues we've seen?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think if this is the Cleveland Indians or Tampa Bay Rays we were talking about, who just seem to develop, young, great pitchers out of the woodwork, I think they would get the benefit of the doubt on a lot of this stuff. But it's the Kansas City Royals, who have not had a great track record under Dayton Moore developing starting pitching. I mean, you say all that you want about, winning a championship, and then he's done a great job in a lot of respects, but starting pitching has kind of been his Achilles heel. And, they haven't had a lot of success developing guys. And I think the more these young pitchers struggle, I think you're going to see a lot more focus on Cal Eldred. I'm a little more agnostic on whether or not he's the problem than like David Lesky, who has been, I think, pretty vocal about his criticism of Cal Eldred and his mishandling in his estimation of the pitching staff. It's hard for me to say as a fan, kind of just a fan's perspective, because it's kind of a black box. We don't know what they're doing to prepare for games. We don't know what he's saying to pitchers right before when he goes out to the mound and right before they give up a home run, like I don't know what he's telling these guys, but I would tell them don't give up a home run on the next pitch. But so I can't say that he's from what I can see, I can't say that he's doing a great job, but I can't say that he's doing a bad job either. But the fact they haven't developed pitching, and the fact that Coar and Lynch have gotten off to such bad starts, and really, Singer has had pretty good success. I think you'd say he's been okay, but the fact that he hasn't really developed that third pitch, I think, is a little bit of a concern. Yeah. I think Chris Bubich, he's had some mixed results. I like, he's had some definitely some good outings, but also, more recently he has gotten that changeup kind of hammered out of the ballpark. So, I've long said that, how they do in the standings this year doesn't concern me as much as how well the young starting pitchers do. Like, if they could have a 500 season, but Brady Singer doesn't really progress, Lynch and Coar don't really pitch well at all, and Chris Bubich doesn't take any steps forward, that's not, I don't feel that great about the long-term future yet. Yeah. Whereas if they lose, 90 games, but we see Brady Singer really start to develop, the changeup really looks good, Jackson Kolar really has a promising start to his career. Chris Bubich continues to baffle guys with his changeup, and Daniel Lynch is electric as a lefty that can throw in the high 90s. Then I feel really good about the future. So Cal Eldred has a lot of weight on his shoulder right now, and I think he deserves a lot of scrutiny. So I think if this team were to have another really long slide, and the pitching is a big part of that, and these pitchers continue to have to develop, I think there's probably going to be a lot of heat on him, and probably he'll be under a microscope as to whether or not he should keep his job. And we know, look, he's good friends with Mike Matheny, and I think that'll be a difficult call for Dayton Moore. But at some point, I think it's the proof is going to be in the pudding. Like, we need these pitchers to take a big step forward. And Brad Keller, we didn't even mention him, and Brad Keller, like, he has taken a huge step backwards this year. And like you said, like, they don't really seem to have good answers for why he's not enjoying the kind of success he had the last 2 years. So, I think there's going to be a lot of heat on him the rest of the season if the pitching doesn't make a big improvement going forward.
Yeah, the thing that keeps sticking for me is that either the coaching has been poor and the development has been poor, or all of the young pitchers are worse than we thought. And even if it is the latter, I would rather assume that it's the former, because it's way easier to try a different pitching coach than it is to try an entirely different set of young arms. Even if that's not entirely fair to Cal, that's hard for me to push away from. But I don't want to. We've been negative for 25 straight minutes now, and I went to try to find something positive, and then I saw the lineup from yesterday, and I saw Mondesi's 361 average sitting there in the midst of a whole bunch of 2s and 1s, and it really made me sad again. But give me something where you go, you look at this last week of baseball, you look at the next week, something where you go, you know what, this has been a pleasant positive here. Maybe it's a pleasant surprise. Maybe just a continuing positive story somewhere along the line. Something, anything that feels like legitimate good news that we haven't talked about yet.
I talked about it a little bit earlier, but I've been really impressed with Nicky Lopez. I think he's a guy that's gotten a lot of criticism from fans. And look, he didn't really hit very well his first 2 seasons in the big leagues, and so I understand a lot of that criticism. But, he's a guy that has a 350 on-base percentage now, is hitting as a 9-hitter, a guy that has pretty much no power, but, he's been so selective up there. He's swinging at fewer pitches, but he's also putting more balls in play than he ever has before. And if he takes that approach, I think he could be a successful major leaguer. Like I said, not a dynamic shortstop like Mondesi, but a guy that's not going to hurt you out in the field either. He's obviously a great defender out there. And even if he doesn't have any power, I think he can be a solid role player for a really good team. And so I've been really encouraged by what I've seen from him. I think it's been great to see Whit Merrifield kind of get the bat going here lately. I think he's a guy that was kind of baffling me a little bit why he was not hitting well to start the year. And I think a lot of that was just kind of bad luck and maybe pressing a little bit where he was swinging at pitches maybe that he would ordinarily swing at. But it's nice to see him kind of turn things around. And I'm still kind of optimistic that Jorge Soler is going to turn things around. I think he's starting to, last 2 weeks, I think you're starting to see him kind of get things going. We've seen him take advantage of some pitches and hit them out of the ballpark. He's drawing a lot of walks lately. I feel a lot better about him than maybe like Hunter Dozier, who still seems kind of lost at the plate. So I think Jorge Soler can come around. Whether or not that will make a difference, I don't know if he can really hit enough the next 6 weeks to be much of a trade candidate. But you never know. Some team may want his bat as a bench bat or an extra bat that can put the ball at the ballpark. So I think there are some positive signs out there. I think Michael Taylor's defense has been really solid this year. I think it's pretty much as expected. He's been one of the top, I think, 15 players in the big leagues in a lot of defensive metrics. So there's a lot. This is a team. You take a step back and look at the big picture. This is a team that has improved. Since last year. Like they're a better team than they were last year. And maybe our expectations got inflated a little bit in April when they were playing so well. But this is still a team that's making some slow and steady progress. And they seem to be headed in the right direction, but we just, have some concerns that they can get to that next level because it's easy to go from like a 100-loss team to an 81, 500 team, right? But it's just harder to make that next step to a serious contender, and that's going to be the biggest challenge for the Royals going forward.
I like the Nicky Lopez point, and we can give people this a little trivia that could probably win you a nickel or two in your bar conversations. Is anyone betting money in bar conversations anymore? I'm choosing to believe they are.
Yeah. Now the pandemic's over.
Yeah, we're making bets in bars again now for sure. We're having fights at sporting events. We can have bets at bars again. If you go minimum of 11 games played to take Mondesi out, or even if you don't, you could include him in this. Nicky Lopez being second on the team in on-base percentage would probably win you some bets. Because that is a jarring stat behind just Carlos Santana and then Mondesi's 10 games. Now I'm sad again. Now I ruined the whole point of coming up with something positive to end on. Well, that's honestly, if nothing else, it's fitting for what this season has been.
Hey, the crowds have been great. It's great to see like 25,000 people out at the K again. Like there's 30,000 on Friday night. I mean, that's really great to see. I'm going to be out there, I think, the next homestand. So it's just fun to see people out at the game again.
It would just be more fun to see people out at a game with Mondesi playing in it. But like, you're right.
You always got to bring it back there.
I know. I can't help it. I'm broken. Thank you, Max. I appreciate you making some time for us tonight. Enjoy being out there for the next homestand. And we'll talk to you again soon whenever Nicky Lopez is on his way to an All-Star game.
Sounds good. I appreciate it. Max
Rieper of Royals Review. Follow him on Twitter at Max Rieper and read Royals Review. You can also follow at Royals Review on Twitter as well, royalsreview.com. That is jarring, right? Nicky Lopez's 350 OBP. It is Mondesi with 10 games played. So if you go with the guys who have been playing on a regular basis, Nicky Lopez has played 63 games. Santana's got 70. And Carlos Santana's OBP is 366. Nicky Lopez is 350, and it's Andrew Benintendi at 340. I not only could a lot of people lost money on that, I would have lost money on that. And that's nice. If Nicky Lopez is a guy that you can throw in that 9-hole and feel pretty good about, be it a plus defender,
slugging 329,
not incredible,
not good, but if he's there for defense and getting on base in the 9-hole, like. Again, there's value in that.
Get on base for the top of the lineup. You don't have to hit it that hard. You don't have to hit it that far.
You're getting on base for Witt. You're getting on base for maybe Mondesi. You're getting on base for Carlos Santana. Literally for those guys.
We are going to end up talking about Mondesi by accident for the next decade. I can just feel it, and I hate it.
Yeah.
This has been sad. You know what I think we should do whenever we come back? Laugh at other people's sadness. Sad fans on Reddit. Philadelphia 76ers edition. That's next.
Want more Almost Entirely Sports? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 Facebook page. This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
The FCC is sitting in the front seat of the van while Beards and Sad Fans on Reddit is sitting in the back of the van.
Yes.
And Beards is like, don't you touch him. Do not touch your brother. And Beards is just leaning over with his pointer finger just half an inch away from Sad Fans' face. I'm not touching him. Beards, don't you touch him. I'm not touching. There are 74 bleeps in here, but I'm not touching it.
On Sports Radio 810, WHB.
The Padres are fun. And if that seems random, it is. But Padres Dodgers is on ESPN tonight. And Fernando Tatis got on base, and then Manny Machado had a 3-run homer, and they put a home run chain on him that spins. Their uniforms, the brown and yellow ones, are so clean, which you wouldn't really expect it to be clean because it's sort of fecal colors, but they really are good uniforms.
They are.
I'm trying to think. I'm not trying to be disrespectful on purpose, but I feel like we got to, calling Aldaberto Mondesi, like fragile Tatis Jr. or something. You see what I'm, I want there to be a better pun there.
Yeah.
And it's not really at Mondesi's expense. It's more so I can laugh at something to keep from weeping.
Yeah. No, I mean, Slam Diego is a lot of fun to watch, man.
Just an irredeemably douchey thing to say, but
that's their nickname.
No, I know. I've
literally
seen the shirts and stuff. It's irredeemably douchey.
City.
It's irredeemably douchey. But if I was a Padres fan, I would have 15 of those shirts. I would have 15 Slam Diego t-shirts. No question. And the brown and yellow, absolutely.
They're fun.
I just want what they have, Rudy. I want what they have.
Well,
and we're so, Mondesi's not literally Tatis at this point. Well, yeah, fair.
Padres got a lot because it's not just the hitting, which is obviously what we know, but they got Blake Snell. They have Yu Darvish.
God, I forgot they had Blake Snell and Yu Darvish.
They have a lot. They have Joe Musgrove, who is outstanding. They have a lot.
They have Casey Musgraves. It's a great staff. Beards, tell me a little bit about what we're about to hear, please.
Sad Fans, Philadelphia versions. They're sad. They're angry. It's not set to Mozart. It's set.
Huge departure stylistically for Beards.
In honor of resident 76ers fan Sterling Holmes, it is set to the old 76ers theme song. It causes pain. It's great.
I forgot Royals legend Tim Hill is also a Padre.
Wow, the best former Royal on the Padres, probably. I would say by a good distance, right?
Probably.
Also, you're gonna notice this Sad Fans has a theme.
Is it?
Its name is Ben Simmons. Its name is Ben Simmons.
So if you don't know, and I'm guessing this is gonna be very Ben Simmons heavy.
Oh boy,
because he ended up being sort of at the bullseye of everything after Game 7 last night. The Sixers though had an apocalyptic meltdown. I think twice, right?
Twice.
It was game 4 and 5.
Game 5 was they were up 25 and lost it.
I think it was game 4 and 5, and they were.
I think it was game 5 and then maybe 7. I don't know, but they also lost game 1 at home very stupidly.
And they would have had
prepared.
They would have had a pretty clean path to the final. This is they would have had to play.
They were the
teams,
1 seed,
but they were the 1 seed. They could have had home. They could have had home court the entire way.
They lost 3 out of 4 games at home.
Were they the 1 seed, or were they the 2, and they had fallen from the 1 to 2 because of some late season
they're the
shenanigans? The Nets had fallen. They could have been the 1.
Yes.
Okay, that's right.
I totally forgot. Matt Strom, also Padre. Royals legend, baby. The Padres win the World Series. It's basically the Royals.
The Royals West. Kansas City West.
Kansas City's we got our team, Kansas City.
Slams the city.
Slam the city.
It's not as clean. It's
not
certainly not as justified. So we might talk more about Ben Simmons and all that in a little bit, but I want to make sure we have plenty of space to hear 76ers fans be very, very sad. Here are sad 76ers fans on Reddit.
Skip Schumacher.
This reminds me of another song so much.
And now, a list of things
80s
that Philadelphia
TV
76ers fans said on Reddit after
Nick at Night
utterly collapsing to the Atlanta Hawks.
Take this, Mozart.
And also Ben Simmons passed on a dunk for a bad layup.
Feels
Ben
very
Simmons
happy.
passed on a dunk. The only fitting way for his Sixers career to end. Simmons looks like that shy, awkward kid sitting by the corner while everyone else is dancing. All f***ing
I've heard.
game. And the only defender between him and the basket was a retreating Trae Young. What the f*** was that? Never want to see Ben Simmons in a Sixers jersey again. Coming this spring, 2022. The faults in our stars. Rated PG missing. Why do I watch sports?
Is it rated
Ben
PG
Simmons
missing?
made me hate watching basketball.
That's really
yes.
funny. Really funny.
Ben Simmons is the most useless all-star I've ever seen.
Joel Embiid had 8 turnovers, I think, last time.
How do you get out of a one-sided toxic parasocial relationship with an NBA all-star? Second best player is unplayable in the fourth.
Oh.
That is
Shot
all.
100% in the fourth quarter.
First year without KD, LeBron, or a stacked Warriors team in many years, and the Sixers f***ed up royally. I hope heads roll this offseason or I can't bring myself to watch. Comment. Seth's wife, Callie, Doc Rivers' daughter, got to deal with the mood of both her husband and father after this. Pray for this woman. Praying hands emoji. Reply. She needs to kiss her husband and take back her Father's Day gift. People to blame. 1. Ben. Huge gap. 2. Doc. 3. Brett Brown for letting Ben play this way for 4 years. 4. Elton Brand for letting Jimmy walk. 5. Tobias. We really had a realistic chance to win a ring this season. JoJo sacrificed his knees just so everyone not named Tyrese and Seth to sell him out. I feel so defeated, let alone how Joel must feel.
This song is a bop.
Jesus Christ, how do you defend this? George Hill played almost 22 minutes and recorded 3 points, 1 rebound. And a game worse, minus 15. Why is George Hill getting 21 and 30 in the game 7, Doc? I want to know why. Ben Simmons in the second halves of game 4, 5, 6, and 7 combined. 9 points on 2 of 5 shooting in 64 minutes. It's all a long con. We'll get him in game 8 and 9. But Ben isn't a scorer. Not a dunker either, I guess. Comment. Just wait. He'll have a bunch of, quote, leaked footages this offseason of him hitting all his mid-ranges and free throws, and everyone will give him a shot again to be disappointed by the same Reply. It'll be for a different team, so it won't matter to us. The Sixers brought in Herb McGee, arguably one of the best shooting coaches, to help fix his shooting. Simmons refused to work with him. You can lead a horse to water. How the do the Sixers use 2 number 1 picks on Ben Simmons and Markelle Fultz? Ben Simmons could still be a star in this league. Come on, guys, keep it up. The Blazers might be reading this. Trade him for me. I'm serious. I scored 31 points in a middle school game 10 years ago. I'm fat now, but that just makes me better on defense. Most importantly, I'm not afraid of my own shadow. Do the right thing here, Maury. I wonder if when we get our Ben Simmons offseason shooting hype video in a couple of weeks, we'll still see some people here eating it up.
Yes.
Personally, I'm hyped for it already. The shots, the new shooting motion, the sweaty, shirtless BS drives on LeBron James and jamming it on the reverse dunk. He's already fooled the city and team 4 times. What's one more? The human centipede may solve the Sixers' problem. Just fuse Simmons, Harrison, Curry, and now you have a guard that can give you 20 points.
I don't want to hear that.
And now, one tweet that snuck its way in to sad fans on Reddit. Via John Clark at JClarkNBCS. Ben Simmons only attempted 3 shots in the fourth quarter in the 7-game series.
Shot 100%.
Only other starting point guard for 7-game series in NBA playoffs over the last 25 years with that few attempts. Eric Snow in 2006. Ben Simmons is an all-star and has a $180 million max contract. And now,
Eric Snow not
the
Beards?
bronze medal of things that Sixers fans said on Reddit.
No, he was Allen Iverson's defensive backup.
Why does Ben Simmons wear a shooting sleeve? And now, the silver medal. If Hitler had asked Ben to shoot him in 1945, I'd be speaking German.
Oh, wow.
And now, the winner of things that Sixers fans said on Reddit.
Oh, boy.
Things I'm telling myself to make me feel better. We would not have beaten the Suns, assuming we beat the Bucks, which I doubt, had we won tonight. At least we beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl. My dog is very cute.
If Hitler had asked Ben Simmons to shoot him, we'd be speaking German right now. Whew!
That's poof.
That one's got.
Philly fans weren't happy.
Woof! Woof! I think that might be the most, like, not stunned as in shocked, but as in, like, I feel like I got tased when I heard of that one.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a pretty good joke. That's a pretty good joke. Hey, here's a Frank Clark tweet from our friend Matt Verderan. While Chiefs edge rusher Frank Clark is dealing with legal issues, I wouldn't expect KC to go after his guaranteed money or add a veteran in case there's a suspension. Seen speculation on both topics, and while it's reasonable, I don't believe that's what the Chiefs are. There you go. We got a little Frank Clark update in this hour. We'll take a break. Whenever we come back, we'll talk about probably that joke again, and then also maybe more about Ben Simmons. There's also a bunch of NBA things that are interesting. We'll see if we can cover all of those in approximately the 3 minutes we'll have remaining.
At JB Brisco, at Beards McFly, at Not That Rudy, at Sports Radio 810. Just do it already. This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
Oh, boy.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Beards, you want to bring your Ben Simmons take to the table here? A little quick. Uh-oh, what's up, Rudy? Rudy's got his mouth open.
There's just go to Twitter.
Yeah.
Kyle Glazer retweeted it. But I've just seen this happen tonight a lot. Just pitchers getting checked. For substance.
Yeah.
Like one pitcher had to like unbutton his pants.
Jacob DeGrom.
Yeah.
They went cap, wrists, glove, and then they asked him to unbutton his undo his belt.
Yeah.
And the look on his face when they asked him to do it was remarkable.
Yeah, it's just funny.
It's very weird.
So you can see video of it. Bill Plunkett has tweeted it out. Yeah, it's just funny.
Beards, hit me on Ben Simmons.
He's probably not going to be a Sixer either at the beginning of next year by the trade deadline.
I kind of want the Nuggets to trade for him.
This was actually going to be my hot take. Is if your it's honestly it's got some similar Mondesi vibes to be hyper local about it.
Sure.
If you can buy Ben Simmons at a crazy low value, that's a gamble I'm willing to take.
Well, so part of the problem
he just can't be your second scorer.
Yeah, no. Which from the Nuggets standpoint, I don't care if he shoots because we got Jamal Murray to shoot.
Right.
So I think part of the problem with him is he has become.
He's right-handed.
No, he
might be.
He in college was like
Probably
a big guy. Played more of the forward position or whatever. In the NBA, he has come in and he said, I wanted to be the point guard.
Right.
Which is an issue when your point guard is a literal zero shooter.
Yep.
Because, like, there are other point guards. Westbrook's, like, he'll shoot it, but he'll also, he's not a great shooter, but he'll get into the lane and he'll do other things. Simmons in the half court is, like, useless for the most part. And when your point guard, who is supposed to be a good outside shooter, is not, and then you have a center and a forward that is also usually a below average shooter, that's an issue.
Yeah.
And if he becomes like supercharged athletic Draymond Green, but then that's probably what he should be.
So what you're saying is if he went to a team whose center was a good shooter and whose forward wasn't one of the best shooters in the NBA, he might be a pretty good fit. Huh?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's going to cost you Michael Porter Jr.,
Well, but would it right now? That's the thing.
Yes.
I don't know,
Michael Porter
man.
Jr. feels like exactly right, and
I
also
don't
not like
know.
enough for the Sixers.
I don't know.
About 2 minutes left. They've also kind of run out of excuses for Philadelphia because, like, it was, they're still young, Ben Simmons will develop. And then it was, Brett Brown's a dumb coach. Now he's gone, and Doc's there, and it was somehow even worse.
Yeah.
And, like, the only time that they were really, quote-unquote, legitimate championship contenders was when they had Jimmy Butler playing, like, the ace closer role, where the fourth quarter was just his to do with what he wanted.
Okay, so hear me out.
It's a weird team, man.
Monte Morris, Bol, and Aaron Gordon.
And a second-round pick.
I was going to say a future first. I was going to give them something.
Probably, 2 future firsts.
Yeah. Honestly, I would try to keep a hold of Michael Porter Jr. and just be like, have all of our first-round picks. Here you go.
It's a weird team, man. I do. So one thing that came out of that last night, and there was a tweet from Hardwood Paroxysm that I've been thinking about literally this entire, since he tweeted it last night, where Joel Embiid was like, yeah, honestly, I thought the game changed when Ben Simmons didn't take that dunk.
Yep.
And Doc was asked, can you win a championship with Ben Simmons as your point guard?
Like,
And he was
I
I don't
don't
know. Joel Embiid was asked if he wants to run it back with the same team, and he was like, that's a tough question.
They've never really fit well together anyway, even like personality-wise, so that's not surprising.
This just seems like the final straw.
But in the grand scheme of things, it's very surprising because that stuff does not happen very, very often in team sports. Having fans or analysts throw you under the bus is relatively normal. Teammates is not.
This was something I heard on the Low Post the other day. Embiid's basically had to change his game a lot to play with Ben Simmons because, like, when he sets the pick, he flares out to the three-point line because if he rolls, Ben Simmons is there.
Right.
He can't post up as much because Ben Simmons' guy is just going to come double him all the time.
The thing I thought was interesting from HP, though, is that he tweeted, I'm not someone that thinks that just because you're honest or right, you get to say whatever. And I thought that was interesting. Like, Patrick Mahomes, it became a little bit of a story what he said after the Super Bowl. He was like, yeah, none of us were very good here. And he was right. But what he could have said is this offensive line was dookie and I got killed. He would have been right, but it also would have been insane to see. Show tomorrow's at 6 o'clock. We'll talk to you then. Bye, Mom.
You are listening to Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco on Sports Radio 810 WHB.